This is 8-inch in the back, George.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
John Glover, and this is the September 4th, 2017 life-saving and Riemann hypothesis briefing. Before we begin, I'd like to start off by explaining to you all the God order, which is God has ordained a black man, Professor G. Oyibo, with the ultimate intelligence called eta sub infinity. Eta sub n exactly represents intelligence. It's the formula which represents all intelligences, and n, the level of intelligence, which God has designed that n for Professor Oyibo to be infinity, hence eta sub infinity. Since black people share the same genes as Professor G. Oyibo, God has now reordained the black race to the most intelligent, richest, and undefeatable race. God Almighty's Grand Unified Theorem, nicknamed GAGUT, is a revelation from God, which infallibly proved that all theorems, called everything that exists, and all equations, also called morphisms, which can mean isomorphisms or polymorphisms, past, present, and future, originate out of one invariant called GI.
This is 8-inch. That's what
In mathematics, you can choose any term to define a quantity. Just because GAGUT defined GI to be God doesn't automatically prove that it is God. For example, one can say milk originates out of the store. If the store is the original point of origin point of the milk, you could replace the term originates out of with its equivalent created by. However, we all know milk does not originate out of the store. It originates out of the cows. So in that case, you cannot use the term originate out of or replace it with created by. However, GAGUT infallibly proved that GI is the ultimate origin of all theorems called everything that exists. So the phrase originates out of can be replaced with created by, which proves that GI defined here represents God, since God can be defined as the creator of everything. Now that God has been infallibly defined as GIJ, God's existence is the next thing that needs to be proven. God's existence is infallibly proven if, through GAGUT, you can prove something exists. And that's quite easily done by proving you exist and I exist. In other words, proving a human being exists is ultimately the proof of the existence of God. Existence of a human being is the proof of the existence of the GIJ, because the GIJ has been infallibly proven to be the ultimate origin of everything. Therefore, because a human being exists like yourself and myself, it infallibly proves the existence of GIJ, which has been infallibly proven to be the definition of God. Therefore, the existence of human beings infallibly proves the existence of God. Now, morphisms, fancy word, sounds very big, but in reality, they can also be isomorphisms or polymorphisms. They're called equations. These morphisms map realities onto a mathematical space, similar to how our senses, like our eyes, ears, and so forth, map realities onto our brains. And that's what's done to process and understand what goes around us, what's going on around us. Morphisms are a measure of intelligence. Since GI, which infallibly defines God, has the totality of all equations, GIJ and hence God constitutes the totality of all intelligence. The GAGUT solution, eta sub n, the formula I was talking about before, which is the totality of all intelligences, which all come out of GIJ or God. They fundamentally represent all isomorphisms as well as all polymorphisms, and therefore contains all of intelligence. It has hence infallibly proved that God not only contains all of intelligence, but God is all of intelligence. And God has amazingly planted all eta sub n's, and hence all of intelligence, inside the brains of Professor Gabriel Audu Oyibo, and have blessed him with the ultimate or totality of all intelligence, with which to understand God or everything. This is how God has ordained Professor Oyibo with the totality of all intelligence, or what we call here, the ultimate intelligence, which can be modestly stated as God has ordained Professor G. Oyibo the greatest genius and the most intelligent creature ever created. Since the black race share Professor G. Oyibo's genes, God has ordained black people by extension to be the most intelligent race. This has been confirmed by several different organizations, universities around the world, which I want to share with you all today. For example, on your screen, I'm bringing it up now, you are going to see the first surrender through a German university, which is important, called Göttingen University. I'm going to bring it up on your screen. You all see the specialized mathematics list, Gauss year 2005, in front of you on your screens now.
Yes, sir.
Can you also, Miss Q? Miss Q? Miss Q, can you hear me? Miss Q, can you hear us? Miss Q, well, she is there, so she's probably watching. But anyway, what's important to understand is this particular list is a list from Göttingen University. Göttingen University was, before Gagut, considered to be the headquarters of intelligence. One of the reasons why they were considered the headquarters of intelligence was because at one time, the university was headed by this man. The person I'm going to be showing you is an actual page from Wikipedia of one of the most famous mathematicians, called Professor Carl Friedrich Gauss. Can you all see that page in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So who is Professor Carl Friedrich Gauss? As you can see here, he was born in 1777 and transformed on in 1855. As you can see from the first paragraph here, he's a German mathematician who contributed significantly to many fields, including number theory, algebra, statistics, analysis, geometry, geodesy, geophysics, mechanics, electrostatics, astronomy, matrix theory, and optics. It's important, the second paragraph. Sometimes referred to as the Princeps Mathematicorum. Latin, translated from Latin, means the foremost of mathematicians. He is also, as they say afterwards, the greatest mathematician since antiquity. This is who Gauss is, and Gauss headed the mathematics department at Göttingen University. I'll show you that in just a second. You see here on the right where I'm just circling with the University of Göttingen?
Yes.
That's the university which he headed the mathematics department from. And the reason why that's important is he transformed, as you saw, in the year 1855. To celebrate Gauss's 150th anniversary of his transformation and commemorate that, we had Gauss year 2005 celebration, which is what I was there before. You see the Gauss page, Gauss year 2005 page in front of you. Mr. Divers?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, good. The reason why this celebration is important is to honor Gauss, who was considered, before Gagut, to be the greatest mathematician in the European society. They wanted to celebrate Gauss by selecting the greatest mathematics works for that year, 2005. And they selected for that year, each week, a work to honor Gauss. In other words, there were 52 weeks in a year, so there were 52 works selected for that year of 2005. You'll follow so far, Mr. Diver?
Yes, I do.
What is the work that you see at the very top of the archive list?
At the top is Gabriel A. Oyibo, Grand Unified Theorem.
Exactly. Gagut was selected to be the #1 work to honor Gauss. But you may be skeptical. You may be saying, oh, I'm just pushing something, or I'm just making a statement that hasn't proved it. You see the number 26 next to it. How is it I'm saying it's #1 work when you see the 26? Well, let me break down to you why Gagut was selected to be the #1 work to honor Gauss. First of all, in order to understand the position of where Professor Oyibo's work was listed by Göttingen, you have to understand who were potential runners-up for that position. There's an old adage that says, you are the company that you keep, or something to that effect, paraphrasing. The important thing to understand is, in order to understand the position of where Professor Oyibo was placed, you have to understand who else was around that area. NR 19, and NR stands for a translation from the German as week. You understand that so far?
Say that again?
Week, like the week, like a week. 7
Oh, yeah, 52 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
The NR 19 refers to week 19. You understand that so far?
Yes.
Okay. So at week 19, you'll see the name Sir Professor Michael Tia and Daniel Iago Nitzer. And the work that's there is field medalist, that's in plural, lectures. So you're probably asking me, who in the world is this Professor Michael Tia? You see the page of Sir Professor Michael Tia in front of you right now.
Yes.
Sir Professor Michael Tia is an English mathematician, a mathematician. He's born in 1929, but he's still alive today. But he has the distinction, if you look in the second paragraph, you'll see that he was the master of Trinity College. And you see that highlighted in the blue?
Yes.
What does Master of Trinity College mean? Well, at Cambridge University, which you've heard of Cambridge, correct?
Yes, I am.
Cambridge is known for its mathematics department as well as its physics department. The reason being is because of the two departments or two fields have, well, I'll get into it a little bit, but the important thing to understand is that Tia holds the prestigious title, the Master of Trinity College. He held that from 1990 to 1997. The Master of Trinity College is a title for the prestigious mathematics department chair from Cambridge. Did you know that, sir?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes. That chair is the prestigious chair for mathematics at Cambridge. You're probably more familiar with the other chair, which honors the physics department, known as the Newton's chair. Have you heard of that one before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. The Newton's chair is the equivalent chair for physics, in terms of the prestigious chair for physics. That chair, as you know, was named after Sir Professor Michael Tia's actual predecessor, or the person he succeeded, which is Sir Professor Isaac Newton.
Right.
Sir Isaac Newton, as you can see here, can you see Sir Professor Isaac Newton in front of you?
Yes.
Newton lived from 1642 to 1727. The reason why Newton's so important is Newton basically put Cambridge on the map because of his works in terms of gravitation and three laws of motion and universal gravitation law. The important thing to understand here is Tia is a successor to Newton. And Newton is considered to be one of the top 3 European mathematicians in the European society. Gauss slightly has an edge over Newton because Newton is considered more of an applied mathematician, which in reality what physics really is. Physics is basically a mathematics applied.
Right.
The calculus and all the things that Newton is credited for has its prominence, even though the calculus is the mathematics of it. Most of the application of that calculus came into play in physics, which is the application of that mathematics. So what's important to understand is Newton, when he was alive, he held both chairs in terms of he was not just the master of the Trinity College, he was also the Newton's chair. What at the time it was called the Lucasian Professorship. So why that's important is Tia, who you saw before, is a successor to Sir Professor Isaac Newton in terms of mathematics. Now, the other thing that's important to understand about Tia is Tia, as you saw in the listing, you saw where it said Field Medalist Lectures. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
What is the field medal? Field medal, as you can see the field medal in front of you?
Yes, I see it.
Okay. The field medal is a prize awarded to 2, 3, or 4 mathematicians every 4 years. It was created in 1936, but the reason why it was created is you can look at the second paragraph. The field medal is with the Abel Prize. You can ignore the Abel Prize for now. Viewed as the highest honor a mathematician can receive. The field medal and the Abel Prize have often been described as the mathematician's Nobel Prize. Can you see that highlighted in the blue?
Yes.
Okay. It's important to know, even though you've probably heard of the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Prize has prizes in most of the major fields like physics, chemistry, biology, or so forth, literature, which really isn't a heavy one, but and economics and so forth. There isn't specifically a Nobel Prize for mathematics, however. So the Field Medal takes the place of being a prize that's equivalent to Nobel Prize, but specifically dedicated for mathematicians or mathematics. Can you understand?
Yes.
Okay, and like it says here in the fifth paragraph, the medal was first awarded in 1936. That's when the award was first created. And every 4 years since then, they award mathematicians that prize. Atiyah won this award back in 1966. That's almost 51 years ago. So let me scroll down. By the way, do you see what I was doing? A list of field medalists in front of you?
That's the list of field medalists?
I'm scrolling down it now. Can you see the field medalist list beginning?
Yes.
Okay, you can see the year. It starts off at 1936. You go down to the year 1966. You see the name Sir Professor Michael Atiyah highlighted here?
Yes.
Atiyah won that field medal in 1966, as you can see from the heading. So what's important to understand here is Atiyah has won an award which is equivalent to Nobel Prize. You understand so far?
Yes.
He's not alone. As you can see from the list here, several mathematicians have won that award. Starting again to the top, going down, you will see a large list of people who have won this award.
Right.
You see names. You don't have to read through the names altogether, but you can see the list of names.
Right, I see the list. It's
Yes.
a lot of people.
Yes. So we're going to stop around 2002. Up to that point, there were roughly 44 Nobel Prize Award equivalents in that work. I mean, from 1936 up into 2002. That was the last award given before the 2005 Gaussian celebration. The next one would be 2006, would be after the celebration. So that doesn't count. It's up into 2002. Can you see that?
Yes.
So the work that was listed in week 19 in that listing was field medalist, as in plural, lectures, which means it incorporates not just Atiyah's work, but all of the field medalist works. So if you count up the field medalists from 1936 up into 2005, you get 44 Nobel Prize Award equivalents or field medalists, including Atiyah. So you have to keep in mind, for week 19, let's go back to the Gauss list again. Week 19, it says, Sir Professor Michael Atiyah and Daniel Agnitzer, field medalist lectures. Remember what I said before about you are the company that you keep. Atiyah could have easily been selected to be in the #1 position because, one, he's the successor to Newton. Newton, although is considered more of an applied mathematician than a real mathematician, Gauss had a lot of respect for Newton. Gauss came after Newton. As you can see from the years, it was from Newton was 1642 to 1727. Gauss was from 1777 to 1865. So Newton was kind of a predecessor to Gauss, and Gauss had a lot of respect for Newton. However, Newton is not considered to be on the same level of mathematics as Gauss is. So you have to understand, Atiyah, being a successor to Newton, could have placed him as #1 work to honor Gauss. Can you see that?
Right, yes.
He has also won a field medal award, which is equivalent to Nobel Prize. That also could have put him in the place of #1 work. Can you see that?
Yes.
And the publication which was listed, which is Field Medalist Lectures, it contains every field medalist from 1936 up into 2005, which there were 44 of them. So that contains 44 Nobel Prizes, including Atiyah. That could have also prompted that work to be the #1 work to honor Gauss. Göttingen, however, saw all that, recognized all that, and still ranked Sir Professor Michael Atiyah and the other 43 Nobel Prize Award equivalents work to be inferior to GAGUT.
Right.
Did you hear what I said?
Right, I understand.
That's evident by them listing GAGUT 7 places above where they placed the Tia and the other 43 Nobel Prize Award equivalents or field medalists. In effect, they're saying GAGUT is worth more than 44 Nobel Prizes or field medals. Can you see that?
Yes.
Praise God for that. You also see that as well, Miss Q. Miss Q? Well, she's there, but her microphone is... I don't know why she's not responding. Perhaps she can't hear us. Miss Q, can you hear us? Miss Q, can you hear us? Miss Q, can you hear us? Well, anyway, we'll get her back. She's heard this part before, but what's important to understand here is who the company Professor Oyibo was in and who could have been in the #1 position. Now, to understand again the impact of the position of where Professor Oyibo was placed, let us go to NR23. Can you see NR23 on the list, sir?
Yes. Alexei Viktorovich.
Don't be too hard on yourself if you can't pronounce the Russian names. It's Alexei Viktorovich Bozhinov and Anatoly T. Fomenko. Now, the first name is not important, but the second name is Anatoly T. Fomenko. Who is he, you ask, correct?
Yes.
You now see the page of Anatoly T. Fomenko from Wikipedia.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Anatoly Timovich Fomenko, a current-day Russian mathematician born in 1945. He was a Soviet during the USSR time, and also a current-day Russian mathematician, professor at Moscow State University. He's also part of the Russian Academy of Sciences. What's important to understand here is Fomenko is a current-day mathematician in the same university system in Russia of another famous mathematician in the European society. And that mathematician is now on your screen. Can you see the page of Professor Leonard Euler?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's Professor Euler? Euler, along with Newton and Gauss, make up the top 3 European mathematicians. Newton came from the mid-1600s up into the early 1700s, and Gauss was late 1700s up into the mid-1800s. Euler existed primarily in the 18th century, from 1707 to 1707 to 1783. What's important to understand about Euler is a German-Swiss mathematician who spent most of, if you go to the second paragraph, you say here, Euler, see this part, Euler was one of the most eminent mathematicians of the 18th century and is held to be one of the greatest in history. Can you see that?
Yeah.
He was also widely considered to be the most prolific mathematician of all time. His collective works fill 60 to 80 quarto volumes, more than anybody in the field. He spent most of his adult life in St. Petersburg, Russia. That's the Euler, even though he was a Germanic Swiss mathematician, he spent most of his life in the Russian university system, the same university system Fomenko is currently in today. You understand that?
Yeah.
So for all practical purposes, Fomenko is a successor to Euler. And Euler had a lot of respect. I mean, Gauss had a lot of respect, not just for Newton, but for Euler as well. Can you see that?
Yeah. So
what you have to understand is Fomenko being a successor to Euler, that could have prompted him to be the #1 math work to honor Professor Friedrich Gauss. However, as you can see the list again on your page.
Right.
What I'm asking is, can you see the list in front of you so I can continue? I just want you to see.
Yes, I see it. I see it.
You can see they put Fomenko's work ranked inferior to GAGUT. That's why it's 3 places below where GAGUT was placed at week 23 as opposed to week 26. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now I'd like you to take a look at week 24. You see the name there, David Gilbert, Knowledge and Mathematical Thinking. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Who's Professor Hilbert, you ask? Can you see the Wikipedia page on Professor Hilbert in front of you?
Yeah.
Professor Hilbert is a German, or was a German mathematician who is, as you can see here, he is recognized as one of the most influential and universal mathematicians of the 19th and early 20th centuries. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Hilbert was a professor who succeeded Professor Carl Friedrich Gauss as the head of the mathematics department at Göttingen. Did you know that, sir?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes. So what you can understand is Hilbert, for all practical purposes, is a successor to Gauss.
Right.
If you look on the side here, can you see the institutions he was associated with? Can you see where the cursor is highlighted in terms of Göttingen University?
Yeah, University of Königsberg.
That's one of his universities, but the university underneath that.
Göttingen University.
Göttingen,
Yeah.
correct. He headed the mathematics department at Göttingen after Gauss. So for all practical purposes, he is a successor to Gauss at Göttingen. Now, you just heard me, you can see here on the page, he is recognized as one of the most influential and universal mathematicians of the 19th and early 20th centuries. Can you see that highlighted in the blue?
Right.
So, and he's known as being the last of the great mathematicians. Hilbert also has a distinction of overseeing 69 PhDs in mathematics. Can you see the doctoral students here on the right side of the page?
Wow.
I haven't even scrolled all the way down. If you look and scroll all the way down, these are a list of most of the students who got PhDs or got PhDs in mathematics under Hilbert. Now, as you know, mathematics is usually a very difficult subject for most people. And even when people get into the field of mathematics, not every mathematician becomes a star in the field. And most professors, when they have a doctoral students, they're lucky to have maybe 1, 2, or 3 of them become actual professors. Hilbert oversaw 69 and produced 69 PhDs in mathematics, and almost all of them became stars. For example, one of them that you see here, Richard Courant. Do you see this one being highlighted?
Yes.
Richard Courant, if you just look at that for a second, you'll see here Richard Courant, he was a mathematician who was from Germany, but what's important to understand is that he created what's known as the Courant Institute in Mathematical Sciences in New York University in Manhattan. Did you know about that before? You see this highlighted in terms of, in 1936, after 1 year in Cambridge, Courant accepted a professorship at New York University in New York City. There he founded an institute for graduate studies in applied mathematics. The Courant Institute of Mathematical Sciences is now one of the most respected research centers in applied mathematics. Can you see that, sir?
Yeah.
Why is this important? Courant produced that Courant Institute of Mathematical Sciences, but Courant was a student of Hilbert. One of the reasons why Courant had to leave Germany to come to America, though, was because of his Jewish background. Because at the time when he was a professor in Germany, it was the beginnings of the Holocaust and the Nazis beginnings and rising up. He had to leave Germany to come to America. But what's important to understand is Courant is a student under Hilbert. Hilbert himself was not Jewish. Hilbert was WASP, but WASP standing for White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. But what's important to understand is that Hilbert's students all became stars in the field of mathematics. One of the most prominent mathematics departments here in America is directly caused because of Hilbert. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So that's why you have to understand the importance of Hilbert in terms of this particular celebration. Now, Hilbert, like I said before, is a successor to Gauss. He headed the mathematics department of Göttingen after Gauss. And he is also considered to be the last of the great mathematicians and oversaw 69 PhDs in mathematics. Any one of those points could have made him the #1 work to honor Gauss. Göttingen very painfully had to rank his work inferior to GAGUT. That's why his work is placed 2 places below as opposed to GAGUT. Can you see that in terms of where Hilbert's is relative to GAGUT on this list?
Yeah.
So now we've come to the crux of the issue. We've shown you the people who are runners-up. What's the big deal behind GAGUT? I've been going on about that. Why is that so critical? First of all, you have to understand the nature of this celebration. Gauss, as I was reading earlier, is known for many fields in mathematics. His most prominent fields of work he did was dealing with differential geometry and things of that nature. Multivariable calculus, high level, and differential geometry, which is a combination of geometry with multivariable calculus and so forth. Very, very interesting parts of mathematics, which GAGUT has assumed in terms of the totality of it within the GIJ, comma J equals 0 formula. But what's important to understand here is when they put GAGUT, first you're saying, well, you see the number 26. How is that number 1, right? That's the question in your mind. Mr. Divers?
Yes.
You're asking yourself, I said GAGUT's the number 1 work, yet you're seeing the number 26. You see a problem. You can't reconcile that. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's the central work.
No.
Well,
You're getting ahead of me. What I'm saying is, what I'm trying to say is, I told you it's the number 1 work, yet you see the number 26 there listed.
oh, yeah.
So how does that reconcile? Well, how do I say it's the number 1 work, and yet you see the number 26? Well, it comes from one of the fields that Gauss is known for, though not his most prominent field of mathematics, but a very critical one to understand the distribution here. And it comes from a subject in mathematics called statistics. Have you ever dealt with statistics before, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever remember, or do you remember in that field dealing with a curve called the bell curve?
Bell curve, yeah.
That bell curve is also known as a Gaussian bell curve. It's a curve that's named after Gauss because of Gauss's work in the field of statistics. Did you know that?
Not that much information on it, no.
Yes. The bell curve is named after the Gaussian bell curve, which is named after Gauss. So what's important to understand here is Gauss knows the understanding of a distribution. Now, remember I said before there are 52 weeks in a year.
Right.
So if you know anything about a distribution of a curve and data, usually when you have a distribution of data, the median or the mean, which sometimes coincide, is usually the highest point in the curve, correct?
Right.
Mean being the average and median being the middle point. You remember hearing those terms before, median and mode? Median and mean?
Yes.
Okay. The mean is the average. The median is the middle point. Remember that.
Right.
Geometrically, it's the middle point.
Right.
So when we talk about GAGUT, recognizing that the celebration has 52 weeks, you divide the 52 by 2, which is the average. What is 52 divided by 2?
26.
Yes, the exact center.
Right. 26.
And as you know in the bell curve at the center, or the median point, or the mean, is the highest point in the curve, or what we call the absolute maximum. Have you ever heard that term? If you've dealt with calculus, you probably have. Absolute maximum, the highest point in a curve?
The highest point in the curve, yes.
I'm sorry, sir?
Yes, you mean the highest point in the curve?
Yes, that is what GAGUT is. The highest point of the curve is GAGUT, which is why it's the number 1 work. And to understand that, if you were to take a bell curve in the middle point and put the GAGUT work as the absolute maximum point, you dropped an altitude, or perhaps a line that's perpendicular to the line of the data. In other words, it will intersect it directly from that high point. You have an axis of symmetry with that curve.
Right.
If you fold the curve over, every other point will have a corresponding point on the other side. In other words, week 25 will have a matching point with week 27. Week 24 will have a matching point with week 28. Week 23 will have a matching point with week 29, and so forth. The only point on that curve that will have no matching point, or no peer, no equal, is week 26, which is GAGUT. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Praise God. Now we're going to explain why GAGUT. You now see how GAGUT's the number 1 work. Now we're going to explain to you why GAGUT's the number 1 work. You understand?
Yes.
You see, in the OFAPID Institute of Technology, we deal with absolute infallible proof. We don't deal with just telling you something and just telling you to accept it. We have to prove everything that we tell you. You understand that?
Yes.
And if you have a question or problem, don't hesitate to ask, because it's up to you to be satisfied with the proof that we provide to you that's infallible on this issue.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, in order to understand that positioning GAGUT as the #1 work, we have to understand GAGUT. GAGUT is an acronym which stands for God Almighty's Grand Unified Theorem. You understand so far?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, you have to understand what GAGUT did. GAGUT decoded the reality of what mathematics, the subject, is. Mathematics is reality, by GAGUT's definition and explanation, the study of theorems. In other words, when you study mathematics, you're dealing with the absolute infallible reality, or truth, or theorems. Theorems are statements which are proven. Theorems are basically statements that are completely infallibly true, that you cannot challenge under any circumstance. For example, 2 + 1 - 3 = 0 is a theorem. You understand how that's a theorem, sir?
Yes.
It's because you can prove it to be true, and it cannot be challenged. You can't have someone say, well, I don't like that, so therefore it's wrong. 2 + 1 - 3 is 0. That's an infallible truth. It cannot be challenged and cannot be stopped under any circumstance. It can't be changed by anyone. That's an infallible truth. Do you understand it so far?
Yes.
Mathematics in reality is just a study of that. In terms of mathematics is a study of theorems. Do you follow so far?
Yes.
Now, again, we have to go back to the definition of GAGUT. GAGUT stands for God Almighty's Grand Unified Theorem. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Understanding that point, theorem and unified are the two words I want to focus on there. All the words of that acronym are important. As you know, the most important, starting off with God. But for this particular proof, I want you to focus on the last two words, which are unified and theorem. You follow so far?
Yes.
Unified theorem means that in actuality, GAGUT contains all theorems. Can you see that?
Yes.
So the two pieces of information we have is GAGUT has decoded that mathematics is the study of theorems, and that GAGUT, from its definition, contains all theorems. You understand that? So that part so far.
Yes.
Okay. Since GAGUT has proven mathematics to be the study of theorems, and since GAGUT has shown that in actuality contains all theorems, hence the unified theorem part of GAGUT, therefore one can now infallibly prove that GAGUT contains all of mathematics. Since GAGUT decoded mathematics to be the study of theorems, and GAGUT contains all theorems, that means GAGUT contains all of mathematics. Can you see the logic, sir?
Yes.
What that means is that GAGUT can reproduce any mathematics work, whether it be week 19, which is Sir Professor Michael Atiyah and the other 43 Nobel Prize Award equivalents. In other words, every mathematical work of Atiyah and the other field medalists can be reproduced out of GAGUT. Can you see that?
Yes.
The work of Professor Fomenko at week 23 can be reproduced out of GAGUT. Can you see that?
Yes.
The work of Professor David Hilbert, is also reproducible out of GAGUT. Can you see that?
Yeah.
The work also of Sir Professor Isaac Newton, the work of Professor Leonard Euler, Professor Bernard Riemann, who we'll get into a little bit later. He's also from Göttingen. And more importantly, the work of Professor Carl Friedrich Gauss, whom this celebration was dedicated to. All of their works are reproducible out of GAGUT. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Since GAGUT can reproduce any mathematics work on this list, because in other words, what this is saying is GAGUT can reproduce any of the mathematics works that you see in the list in front of you, and any mathematics work that is not on that list, provided those mathematics works are correct. Since GAGUT can reproduce any mathematics work, it means God has basically proved to the rest of the world that through Professor Oyibo, God has blessed Professor Oyibo with all the totality of all mathematics embedded inside of GAGUT. And the Germans recognized this. The Germans recognized because of GAGUT blessing coming through a black man, Professor Oyibo, from Africa, with an African last name or surname. They had no choice but to not just surrender to Professor Oyibo, but to officially take the baton of mathematical excellence from Gauss, whom before GAGUT was considered to be the greatest mathematician of all time. They have now taken that baton from Gauss and now surrendered it over to Professor Oyibo, and have formally declared Professor Oyibo as being the greatest mathematician of all time that can never be surpassed, past, present, and future infallibly. Now I know, hearing that for the first time, you're going to say, that's a lot for someone to say or to claim. But you have to understand, Göttingen is the one saying this. You have to realize, without GAGUT, there's no way the Germans would have even put a black person on this list. The whole system, which we're going to be dealing with in the programs today, in terms of Jim Crow, has automatically designed, particularly the mathematics field, to exclude it, to keep black people out. You understand that?
Yes.
They're automatically designed to keep black people out, so they never get into these fields in the first place. And even the black people, the few black people that get into the field, because of the Jim Crow fraud, which I'm going to be getting to later, in terms of the 3/5 factor, they're automatically kept out of this field and automatically viewed as not being even a serious candidate in terms of coming up with something like this. GAGUT, however, being blessed by God through Professor Oyibo, forced them to recognize not only as the black man being the most intelligent creature ever created, but now the greatest mathematician of all time that can never be surpassed, past, present, and future infallibly. In other words, before GAGUT, black people would have never made this list. I know a lot of black people carry European surnames now, but you can tell from the list here, without Professor Oyibo, none of the other names are black people. You can tell that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Without GAGUT, there would have been no black people on this list. GAGUT forced the Europeans in Germany, the WASP in Germany, to not only put a black person on that list, but at the very top of that list, which is where GAGUT is placed, as the #1 work to honor Professor Carl Friedrich Gauss. You have to understand also the part I said about which GAGUT has proven Professor Oyibo to be the greatest mathematician of all time that can never be surpassed, past, present, and future infallibly. What that part means is that if you take any past mathematics work, if you remember, you may have dealt with in mathematics formula like the quadratic formula or conic sections or things of that nature. You remember dealing with formulas like that?
No, not really.
Algebraic formula? A plus B equals C or something like that? Anyway, so any mathematical formula or work in the past is embedded inside of GAGUT. Any present day mathematics work of this year, of September 4th, 2017, any present mathematics work is also embedded inside of GAGUT. It also means any future mathematics work is also embedded inside of GAGUT. For example, if we were to fast forward to the year 2071, someone claims that AD, that is, 2071 AD, someone claims to come up with something new in GAGUT, something new in mathematics, it is already embedded inside of GAGUT. You understand that?
Yeah, okay, so, because that would be the proof that it's correct.
No. What GAGUT is already proven to be infallible because it contains all mathematics. That's what I just went over before in terms of it can reproduce any mathematics work. What I'm trying to explain to you is it's not just the past work or the present work, it is also the future work. Since GAGUT contains all the mathematics, it means any mathematical work is embedded already inside of GAGUT, whether it be the past, present, or future.
Wow.
So that's what I'm trying to get across. If we go to the future in terms of 2071 AD, someone claims to come up with some new mathematics. It is already embedded inside of GAGUT.
Wow.
You can fast forward even further beyond that to the year 3070 AD. Someone claims to come up with something new in math. It is still embedded in GAGUT. You can go as far out as to the year 10 billion AD. Someone claims to come up with something new in mathematics. It is already still embedded in GAGUT. That is what prompted the Germans to place a black man as the #1 greatest mathematician of all time that can never be surpassed, past, present, and future. And in effect, it is a surrender from Jim Crow to the black people in terms of their intelligence. Can you understand that?
Yes.
So that surrender is what is one of the things we want to go over with you all today. But you have to understand it didn't stop there. Göttingen, as powerful as it is, it's a surrender. Even though Göttingen is based in Germany, the Germans basically can be considered an overall, they speak for the whole European people because they're the highest level in the European society. So when the Germans have surrendered to GAGUT and Professor Oyibo, and recognized Professor Oyibo as the most intelligent creature ever created and the greatest mathematician of all time that can never be surpassed, past, present, and future infallibly, the rest of the Europeans have surrendered as well. But that would have been great on its own, but it wasn't just by itself. We also have another instance of that type of surrender taking place in the Asian continent. I want to bring your attention now to this particular piece, which you probably have heard about, but we're going to go into now. I want you, can you read this paper in front of you, sir?
Yeah, it's a little small, but...
Let me enlarge it. Now?
Yeah.
Can you read?
Gauge,
Just the title. You don't have to read just the title and the names of the people who wrote it and all that. And I'll go into that in a second after you read it.
gauge conditions for an abelian
Chern-Simons system.
Chern-Simons system consistent with the equations of motion.
Yes. This is a physics paper, a mathematical physics paper written by Indians. You probably can tell that a little clear by the names listed there in terms of Pankaj Saran, Anupanda Metra, Krishendu Dasgupta, and M. Sami.
Right.
I want you to focus on the third name there, Krishendu Dasgupta. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Who is this particular person and why is he important, you're asking? Let me break down to you why this particular paper and person is important. Professor Krishendu Dasgupta is a mathematical physicist from, and you can see below here, it says Department of Physics, Jamia Millia Islamia. Can you see that?
Yes.
You see also below that it says New Delhi.
New Delhi, yeah.
New Delhi is in India. And what you have to understand is Jamia Millia Islamia is a top 20 school in India. This university was founded by the King of Saudi Arabia. He funded it and created it in India. And you can tell it's an Islamic university just even by its name, Islamia, for the last part. What's important to understand, though, is this university was founded, I believe, in the 1920s, but it was instrumental in getting the Indian people liberated from the British in the 1948 or 47. You understand?
Yes.
The university was key towards the Indians' independence from England.
Right.
What you have to understand is it's a very prominent school in India. Dasgupta comes from that school, as he's a mathematical physicist there. So now, in understanding that, you have to understand several things about India. Indians have won a great deal of Nobel Prizes in the search for the unified field theory before GAGUT. So what you have to understand is that there were, before GAGUT coming through Professor Oyibo, Jim Crow considered the Indians to be a very strong, hopeful people to come up with the solution to the problem. They didn't. And you have to understand that Scoop himself searched or tried to search for it and failed. You understand that?
Can you say that again?
Scoop was on the search for GAGUT, but failed.
Okay.
However, once he heard that GAGUT had come through a black man, Professor Gabriel Audu Oyibo, he had sent us an email to our university. Now, I'm going to share that email with you, but you have to understand some background about India. Indians, like I was telling you, are considered to be hopefuls or considered to be people that were expecting to have solved this problem. They didn't. But what you have to also understand is that in the Indian system, the Indians have a system like Jim Crow here in America, like the Jim Crow system here, that bases people on classification of skin color. This is known as the caste system. Have you ever heard of the caste system before?
Yeah, yeah.
The caste system has been in place in India for millennia, several thousands of years. It's not something that just happened overnight or just within the last couple of years. It's something that's been in India for a very long time.
Right.
They based it off of the so-called lighter skinned you are in the so-called society, the so-called better or the higher level in society you were. When you get into darker shades of skin tone, you get into lower levels of society. When you reach the actual black people in India, or what they call the Dalit, or they're actually called Dalit or untouchables in that caste system. So Dasgupta comes from that system, which automatically views black people at the very bottom. You understand that?
Yeah.
In addition, Dasgupta comes from a system because Indian people are tolerated slightly better by Jim Crow than the black people. That has conned most Indians into believe themselves better than black people. For example, even if you are, even a black person is of lighter skin color than the Indian person will still not have respect for that black person prior to GAGUT. You understand what I'm speaking of?
Yes.
So that's the system that Dasgupta comes from.
Wow.
Upon hearing the news that God had blessed Professor Oyibo with the solution to the grand, what we call God Almighty's Grand Unified Theorem, represented by G(I)j, j equals 0, he wrote to our university an email. And the email you see here is entitled. No, sorry, but these are annoying pop-ups. Sorry about that. There it is. You see the email in front of you, sir? Let me enlarge it. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, you can see the email was from Krishendu Dasgupta. He sent it on July 25th in 2025 in the year 2007. That's over 10 years ago he sent us this email. You see that?
Yeah.
Can you see the date?
Yeah, I see the date.
July 25th, 2007. That was over 10 years ago. The subject mission's title is God's Mission and Dasgupta. This is important because you have to understand the title, in effect, is a testimony from Dasgupta. In effect, he's now swearing, as if he was swearing under oath, what he's about to say here. So when he says God's Mission and Dasgupta, you have to understand he is basically testifying to what he has now understood through GAGUT. And this is the actual message that he sent us. Dear Oyibo, good day. I heard that you have been successful in finding the unified field theory. Congratulations. You are more close to God than any of us. You are more close to God than any of us. I was also working upon this theory. Since my theory was different, God was different to me. Please write to me, as I would like to know where I was wrong. Thanking you, yours, Krishendu Dasgupta.
Wow.
Yes, praise God for that.
Wow, praise God.
Like Göttingen, this is a surrender, because you have to understand, the caste system automatically viewed black people at the very bottom in that system. When Dasgupta has declared a black man from Africa as being closer to God than any of us, and what we call that in mathematics is a diametrically opposed position. Diametrically opposition, or being diametrically opposed, means you're on the opposite ends. It's what we call a 180-degree rotation or change in position. Can you understand that?
Yeah.
For example, if you're at the bottom, a diametrically opposed position would be at the very top. That's what Dasgupta said when he is declared Professor Oyibo as being closer to God than any of us. And you have to understand, it's GAGUT that make him say that. In other words, to tell the truth. Without GAGUT, he would have never told the truth about Professor Oyibo being closer to God than any of us. You have to understand, a black person could be a so-called billionaire or millionaire even, and even then they still couldn't pay off an Indian to say they're superior to them or even on the same level. GAGUT has now forced them to recognize the black people through Professor Oyibo being closer to God than any of us. Black people share the same genes as Professor Oyibo, so they've now recognized the black people as being closer to God than any of us, and it's due to G2j, comma j equals 0. Can you see that?
Yes.
Now, this also has implications for other reasons in terms of the religion aspect. I know you probably have family members or people like that who are in the religious fields who you would see as a problem in terms of getting to understand GAGUT, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, let me deal with that right now. You remember I was telling you Dasgupta comes from a top 20 school and university called Jamia Millia Islamia. As you can tell from the last word Islamia, he comes from a university that has a Muslim religious background into it, correct?
Yes.
Now, you have to understand, when Dasgupta made this statement in India, he said this in a heavily Muslim populated area in India. You understand?
Yeah.
Now, have you ever heard of the man called Salman Rushdie, an Indian author by the name of Salman Rushdie?
Yeah.
What do you know about him?
No, he was a controversial Indian. Used to write a lot of things on controversial subjects.
Okay.
Yeah.
But do you remember a specific instance of a work that he wrote in 1988 called The Satanic Verses? Do you remember anything specifically about that book?
No, I have to look at it. You said the sex.
Well, I'm going to explain it to you anyway. Satanic Verses was a work of his that he published around that time in 1988, almost 30 years ago. It's 29 years to be exact, but the important thing to understand is that that work was considered to be an affront to Islam. It was considered to be so abject and so such an attack against Islam. The Ayatollah of Iran in that same year, 1988, he ordered all the followers of Islam and the Muslim religion to actually go and assassinate Rushdie for that work. Did you know that?
No. Wow. No.
That's one of the reasons why Rushdie is currently in the so-called England right now, or he's not in India today. He had to be rescued by the English and the other Europeans to get him out of India because of that work. The important thing to understand is that that work was considered to be an affront to Islam and a challenge to Muhammad. That's one of the key reasons why he was attacked. He basically said something in that book or did something in that book that they considered to be disrespectful to Muhammad. That's why the Ayatollah of Iran ordered for his fatwa, or assassination. Fatwa is from the Arabic, loosely translated, means assassination.
Okay.
So you have to understand, this is the same area that Dasgupta is from in India. When he declared Professor Oyibo as being closer to God than any of us, he said that in the same Islamic area that Rushdie came from. Now, keep in mind, when he said that Professor Oyibo is closer to God than any of us, he didn't say Professor, and you have to understand, in Islam, the most prominent figure in Islam isn't even Allah, but Muhammad. Muhammad has more prominence than Allah in Islam. You understand that?
Yes.
When you understand that point, then you have to understand Dasgupta declaring Professor Oyibo as being closer to God than any of us. It means he didn't say Professor Oyibo is like Muhammad or a prophet like Muhammad or approaching Muhammad. He said Professor Oyibo is closer to God than any of us, which means Professor Oyibo supersedes Muhammad. Can you understand that?
Yes.
Now, Dasgupta saying that could have had a fatwa placed on him, like they did on Rushdie. Because he's now saying a black man who's been blessed by God with the ultimate intelligence is closer to God than Muhammad, who I just explained in the Islamic religion is supposed to be, has more prominence than God in that religion.
Yeah.
If the statement was not GAGUTical, they could have challenged or attacked him or actually put a fatwa on Dasgupta. However, as you can see, it's over 10 years after Dasgupta wrote that letter. Professor Krishendu Dasgupta is alive and well in India with no fatwa declared on him because he articulated an infallible truth that can't be challenged. Not one of the billion of Islamic or Muslims out there could challenge that point. And you understand that?
Yes.
What do you say to that, sir?
That is unbelievable.
Praise God.
It is
But you also understand, in addition to that, the same thing is analogous to Christianity. If you replace Allah with God and Muhammad with Jesus Christ has more prominence than God in the Christian religion.
Right.
When it was stated that Professor Oyibo is closer to God than any of us, he didn't say Professor Oyibo is like a Messiah approaching Jesus or getting close to Jesus. He said Professor Oyibo is closer to God, more close to God than any of us. That means Professor Oyibo supersedes Jesus Christ. Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
Now, it's easy for most black people to consider that a blasphemous statement. Or a statement as, oh, the brother's engaged in some real hyperbole, or what is that brother smoking, or what drugs is he on? Well, let me explain to you and infallibly prove why Dasgupta's statement of Professor Oyibo being closer to God than any of us has proven that Professor Oyibo supersedes both Muhammad as well as Jesus Christ. You have to understand GAGUT through the formula Gij, comma j equals 0, and eta sub n, which I told you represents all of intelligences. God has blessed Professor Oyibo with an n level of infinity, which means the totality of all intelligences. And Gij, comma j equals 0 contains all infallible truths, all infallible theorems. So you have to understand the formula that God has blessed Professor Oyibo with all of intelligence, all knowledge. Neither Muhammad nor Jesus was ever credited as having any formula that contained all knowledge or being blessed with all intelligence.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
Nowhere in the Bible does it say Jesus had a so-called a formula that represented all forms of all infallible truths or had all intelligence in terms of 8 to 7 infinity intelligence. Nor did Muhammad have a formula that contained all theorems or all infallible truths and an 8 to sub infinity intelligence. Professor Oyibo has been blessed by God with such a formula. That is what has made Professor Oyibo closer to God than any of us and supersedes both Jesus and Muhammad. Neither Jesus nor Muhammad had a formula. God blessed that formula through Professor Oyibo. Can you now see that infallible proof?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about it?
Yes. I would like to know, since the GAGUT has come out, what is going on with as far as this theories not being taught in schools like across the country?
Well, actually, so that's not completely accurate in terms of GAGUT is being taught. The problem is it's not being taught in a way that black people are understanding it. And more to the point, black people are the ones who are the most unaware of GAGUT at this moment. Jim Crow, for example, we're going to get into this later. You're going to see how MIT, Yale, Columbia, Harvard, and other Ivy League universities not only have the GAGUT books in their schools, teaching their students and their libraries, but they also are teaching the GAGUT courses in their schools. For example, there's a University of Texas at Austin, which has 2 Nobel laureates in their physics department. There's a physics level course there, and a 300 level course on GAGUT in that course, in that school. The problem is, however, the so-called black schools, the historical black colleges, for example, They are not teaching GAGUT. In fact, that's one of the things we wanted to talk to you all today, which is one of the things we're going to get into later. We're not ignoring your question, sir. We're going to be addressing that in this media broadcast. So keep that in mind. But you have to understand, Jim Crow is not just learning about GAGUT from us. They're teaching GAGUT to themselves through us. But the black people are the ones who are being disconnected from GAGUT, which is the irony. It comes through the black people, and yet the black people are the last ones to understand the impact of GAGUT in terms of our lives and what it has done for us as a people. Like I said here, Das Gupta was forced to respect the black people because of GAGUT. GAGUT forced them to recognize Professor Oyibo as being closer to God than any of us, and by extension, because black people share the same genes as Professor Oyibo, as being the most intelligent or the closest to God than any other race, people. That's a complete destruction of the caste system, which viewed black people at the very bottom. So like Göttingen before it, which initially they were trying to present black people as supposedly being not even considered in the front-running position for being able to solve GAGUT, to now recognizing a black man as being the greatest mathematician of all time, that only came about because of GAGUT. Just like here, before GAGUT, black people would have still been, especially Das Gupta representing Asia, would have still viewed black people as Dalit or untouchables, the lowest level in the so-called caste system. GAGUT has destroyed that caste system when now you have him declaring a black man as being closer to God than any of us, including himself and the Indian people.
Wow.
You understand so far, sir?
Yeah.
So this is one of the things we want to break down to you in terms of what is going on with GAGUT and what needs to be happening with the black people and the black schools and the churches and so forth. You understand so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Now those, and you also have to understand their neighbor, India's neighbor, China, is not no slouch in this issue either. China actually published in the People's Daily, which is the 5th largest newspaper in the world. They published the article pertaining to GAGUT in terms of how GAGUT came through Professor Oyibo and has won the greatest prize in history, which is the African International Prize for Science and Technology Award. An award which was created in Nigeria unanimously by the Nigerian Senate, all ethnic groups in India coming together due to GAGUT, and unprecedented before, all Nigerian ethnic groups coming together and voting on the creation of this prize due to GAGUT. And GAGUT being the maiden recipient or awarding of that award. So you have to understand, GAGUT has made impact around the world. Wow, but the problem is our people are unaware of it. It's similar to the Juneteenth situation in Texas. Unfortunately, Hurricane Harvey is going on right now. But in Texas, the situation of the Juneteenth is most critical because it pertains to what's happening to us as a people in terms of after the end of the American Civil War in 1865, well, even before that in 1863, they talk about the Emancipation Proclamation, which is supposed to get black people officially off the plantations. By 1865, the war was over. Black people were supposed to be off the plantations altogether. But yet, a year or two afterwards, in 1866, 1867, it was discovered there were Texas plantations in which black people were on those plantations, completely oblivious to the fact the situation had changed and that they weren't supposed to be in the plantations anymore.
Right, they didn't get the news.
That's precisely what's going on here with GAGUT. That's one of the reasons why everyone's been ordered to come to the briefing, because without being aware of GAGUT, that's where the problems come in. And you have to be more aware than GAGUT than ever because of this next point, which I want to bring to your attention. The next surrender of Jim Crow to the black people through GAGUT comes right here in our own country, which is here, and it's not too far from where you are too, sir, in terms of the Yale study. Can you see the Yale study in front of you, sir?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, this is a research that was conducted over 20 years ago, in 1997. The reason why this is particularly important.
This was conducted over 20 years ago?
Yeah, this was a paper published in 1997, in July. It's now September 2017, so it's roughly a little bit over 20 years. Can you understand that?
Yeah.
This is research in July 1997. It is now September 2017. That's over 20 years. Even though the year would make it 20, the 2 months between July and September would make it over 20 years. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's important to understand here is this is a publication that was of a research that was spearheaded specifically because of GAGUT. In 1990, GAGUT was officially announced and presented through Professor Oyibo. By 1997, GAGUT had forced President Bill Clinton at the time, along with the rest of the Europeans, to actually take eta sub n, the formula, into the labs to determine the intelligences of the black people. They already recognized Professor Oyibo as having eta sub infinity intelligence, or eta sub infinity. So they recognized Professor Oyibo as having the totality of all intelligence. So they recognized, in light of that, they had to determine the intelligence of the black people relative to the non-blacks. And when I say non-blacks, I mean whites, Asians, Jews, Arabs, and so forth.
Now, why did they have to do this?
Because of GAGUT coming through Professor Oyibo, a black man. God had blessed Professor Oyibo with eta sub infinity intelligence. Once they recognized that black men had the totality of all intelligence, they have to determine the intelligence level of the rest of his people. They took the eta sub n formula into the labs, and they also wanted to compare the intelligence of the black people to the non-blacks. You understand that?
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Because once you have a formula that contains everything, you then have to determine a basis of intelligence for people, and especially when you're getting, I was going to get to this after this point, but you have to understand how Jim Crow has sabotaged the black people's intelligence through a very vicious and deadly fraud, which is the basis of this presentation today. You have to understand, in order to get rid of that fraud, GAGUT had to be brought into the labs, which is the GAGUT Yale Study Correction Factor, which I'm going to get into in just a second. But you have to understand, this research was conducted under President Bill Clinton and was ordered by GAGUT. They recognized that because of Professor Oyibo having eta sub infinity intelligence, certain things had to be done in this experiment that had to, or be removed from this experiment that were done in previous experiments, but not in this one because of them being frauds, in terms of being things that were done deliberately by Jim Crow to sabotage or to taint the results of the reality of the situation. First of all, do you see the title of the paper?
Yes.
Can you read it out loud, please?
Nuclear DNA diversity in worldwide distributed human populations.
Yes. Now, can you see the names underneath that title?
Yes.
Granted, you don't have any pictures of these people, but do any of these names look to you like they could be black people or brothers or sisters to you?
Not really offhand.
Exactly. This was done by Jim Crow, and the best way you can determine that there were no black people involved in the actual research here is look at the name I'm circling now. Can you see the name I'm circling?
Yeah, Kenneth K. Kidd.
Yes, Kenneth K. Kidd. Take the middle, take the first, middle, and last name initials. What do you get?
Oh, KKK.
That's the symbolism of who conducted this experiment. So this isn't some sort of brothers or sisters coming together with some sort of so-called feel-good research. This is Jim Crow conducting the research using eta sub infinity, eta sub n into the actual research. Now, who is Professor Kenneth Kidd? Did you see the super B behind Kidd?
Hold on, your
audio's going corner back to the Kidd. Can you see it?
Audio's going in and out.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Okay, can you see the Kenneth K. Kidd, super B after Kenneth K. Kidd?
I see it.
Okay, go to the legend and see what university is associated with.
That's Yale University School of Medicine, Department of Genetics.
Yes, at 333 Cedar Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Right.
So you have to understand, Professor Kenneth K. Kidd, who read symbolism of the so-called white supremacists or the Jim Crow, they were the ones conducting this research. He is the professor of genetics at Yale University. And if you look at the other universities on that list, you'll see French universities Canada University, Montreal, Quebec. You also see Rome, Italy universities, 2 of them, and 2 other American universities, Pennsylvania State and Louisiana State universities. None of them are black schools. Can you see that?
Yes, yes.
So now the next question is, in light of that point, what now needs to be focused on is this abstract. Now the abstract, you have to understand, there's some terms in here that's not going to be clear because of the way it's presented, but I'm going to break down the terms for you. I would like you to go to the 4th line of the abstract. Can you do that?
Say the 4th line?
Where the cursor is right now.
Okay. Analysis of
No,
DNA.
that's the third. That's the 3rd line. The line underneath that.
Oh, okay. What is that? A meridian population?
Yes, but that's the end of the previous sentence. But this next sentence that begins with "in." Can you read that part?
In this way, the European bias in the nuclear polymorphism ascertainment has been avoided.
Okay, just stop there, please. What does that mean? There's a lot of words there. Remember what I was telling you before in the beginning about morphisms being also known as equations, that they are a measure of intelligence? Remember me going over that point in the beginning?
Yes.
That's what this is basically saying here. They're talking about polymorphism ascertainment, which is intelligence. They're trying to discover or figure out intelligence amongst people. However, the part in the beginning is the most important when it said, in this way, the European bias in the nuclear polymorphism ascertainment has been avoided. What does the term European bias mean? European bias is a synonym for Jim Crow.
Right.
So what they're saying here is because of GAGUT and the eta sub infinity intelligence of Professor Oyibo, once they recognized Professor Oyibo has been blessed with the totality of all intelligence, they knew that the Jim Crow factor, the European bias, had to be removed from the experiment. It had to be expelled. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It had to be expelled in order to obtain any correct results, because if they had the European bias or the Jim Crow factor in there, they would have presented some fraud as some non-black race being the most intelligent. But that automatically has been proven to be false or fraud because of Professor Oyibo being blessed with the totality of all intelligence. Since Professor Oyibo has been blessed with the totality of all intelligence, that means that no other race can be blessed as being far superior or being intelligent than Professor Oyibo, who represents the black people. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And that was confirmed in this. Once the European bias was removed, then can you go to line 6, which is 15 polymorphism? Can you read that out loud, please?
Okay, 15 polymorphisms were shared among most of the population compared, whereas 13 sites were found to be endemic to African and 4 to non-African.
Okay, just stop right there. That's the part I want you now to focus on. Like I said before, polymorphisms are a measure of intelligence. The thing you have to understand here is, since they map realities onto a mathematical space, like I was saying, like the senses do, their eyes, ears, and touch, so forth, do the same thing with the brain. The more polymorphisms an organism or creature has, the more intelligent it is. There's a direct correlation between the number of polymorphisms and the intelligence of a creature. For example, when you talk about animals, reptiles, some of the smaller mammals, or the non-primate mammals, they have a certain number of polymorphisms. They have an intelligence, but nowhere near human. For example, you can talk about an alligator or a dog or something like that. They may have maybe about 8 or 9 polymorphisms. They have polymorphisms, but they're not the same level as humans. You understand?
Wow.
Then when you get into the primates, like your apes or gorillas and so things like that, they may have like 12 or something or like that, or orangutans, 12 or 13 polymorphisms. They have more intelligence than perhaps the dog or the alligator, but at the same time, they're not to the same level as humans. What this particular line you just read says that humans have a base polymorphism number of 15. That's what
so
it said when it said
all humans.
I'm sorry, sir?
So that's all humans.
Yes, 15 polymorphisms were shared among most of the populations, human populations compared. So there's a base number of 15 polymorphisms.
Right.
Now, the next part is where you have to really understand or really listen, because this is the part that's really critical to today's presentation. It says here, whereas 13 sites were found to be endemic to Africans. What does that mean? That means there are 13 additional polymorphisms for black people, African people, to the 15. You have to add 13 to the 15 to get the true polymorphism count for the black people. What is 15 plus 13, sir?
28.
Exactly. So the polymorphism count for black people is 28. Now, how does the polymorphism count correlate to the eta sub n formula, which I kept going over? The n in that formula represents the polymorphism count in the research you're seeing here and for the eta sub n formula. So when we tell you that, when you see here that the 15 plus 13 equals 28, that means the eta sub n formula for black people is equal, the n is equal to 28. So in reality, the black people's intelligence level is eta sub 28, and there's a plus, which I'll explain later. But it's eta sub 28 plus for black people. Can you see that?
Okay, yeah. You're saying that that's like an average of...
No, it's not an average. It's a base number. That's the number we're at. And the plus, which I'm going to explain later, shows how it can go even beyond that. But I'm going to prove that in a second. I want to go over this point first in terms of the eta sub 20. What?
You're saying that's you're saying that's the minimum, or that is the
in a way for the black people, yes. But you have to understand this is for the black people. Now for the I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yes, for the non-blacks, which I said before, whites, Asians, Jews, Arabs, and so forth. You have the 15 polymorphisms, which I said were common amongst all humans. But for them, they only have 4 additional for themselves. 15 plus 4 is
19.
Yes. So they have an eta sub 19 minus, which I'm going to explain also. So where does the plus and minus come from, you ask? Well, first you have to understand this research was conducted by Jim Crow. As you can saw from the name KKK for Kenneth K. Kidd, this was conducted by Jim Crow. This is not black people getting together to do this research. You saw that.
Yeah. Now, that Kenneth K. Kidd, is that actually a real person, or is that really like an acronym?
Yes. Sir, yes, he is. You just saw the information. This is a real this is a real research. I know because of the last 2,500 years from fraud from Jim Crow, it's difficult for our people to see the truth and understand and accept it. But this is the truth. This is an actual real research study that was forced by GAGUT. But it's a good question. But you have to understand, yes, Professor Kenneth K. Kidd is a real person. He's at Yale Department of Genetics. You can check that out for yourself. What's important to understand, though, about what Kidd has done here and the rest of them have done here is when they've declared the black people as having 28, you have to understand Jim Crow always, when dealing with black people, underestimates black people. A good example is the Million Man March. There were clearly over 1 million black people at that march, yet Jim Crow or the non-blacks keep trying to present it as, oh, it was just a couple tens of thousands of people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's an underestimation.
Right.
So when Jim Crow declares that you have 28, it is more likely to be more than 28. And the other way you can prove that it can also be more than 28 is by Professor Oyibo himself. Professor Oyibo has been blessed with an n of infinity. If Professor Oyibo has infinity and they declared us as having 28, there exists the possibility of a black person being greater than 28 and less than infinity. Can you see that?
Yes.
That's how we prove it's eta sub 28 plus for black people. You understand that part?
Yes.
Then let's go back to the eta sub 19 minus for the non-blacks. The opposite is done for Jim Crow for themselves. Anytime they present something about themselves, they always overestimate themselves. They exaggerate.
Right.
So when they declare themselves as having 19, it is more likely less than 19. So that's why it's minus. So in other words, you have the intelligence level of the black people being 28, excuse me. And you have the non-blacks intelligence level as being 19. The ratio of the black people's intelligence to non-black people's intelligence is 28 to 19. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Ratios can be converted into fractions. 28 to 19 can be converted to 28 over 19. Can you see that as well?
Right.
Now, 28 over 19 can't be further simplified. But in mathematics, 28 over 19 is represented as recognized as a improper fraction, where the numerator, the upper number of the fraction, the number above the line, is greater than the denominator, the bottom number, the number below the line in that fraction. So that's not a proper fraction, but we want to simplify it further to make a point. Since we said before that it's eta sub 28 plus for black people, we can raise 20 up onto the next divisible number above 28, which is 30. And since it was eta sub 19 minus for Jim Crow, we can bring 19 down to the next divisible number, which is 18. So 28 over 19 now is approximately, not equal, but approximately 30 over 18. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Now 30 and 18 both share a common factor of the number 6. What is 30 divided by 6?
5.
Correct. That's correct, sir. What is 18 divided by 6?
3.
Correct. So now the fraction 30 over 18 can now be equal to 5 over 3. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
5 over 3 is what we call the GAGUT Yale study correction factor. That Yale study correction factor, 5 over 3, destroys a very vicious fraud, which is the main part of what this presentation is today about, which is the 3/5. Have you ever heard of that 3/5 factor pertaining to black people?
Oh, yes. Like during.
What do you know about that?
Like that was how they determined, I guess, what we'd be classified as when we started to.
That's the vicious fraud for the last 2,500 years that has been the major problem of our people. You were talking before about why is this not being studied in the black schools. That 3/5 death factor is the very reason, which is what we're going to be dealing with today's presentation about. That factor that Jim Crow has forced into every aspect or facet of black people and African people's programs and society and their everyday life is the death factor, which GAGUT has sent the GAGUT Yale study correction factor to destroy today. The 3/5 and the 5/3 are what we call reciprocals of each other. Reciprocal basically means when you have a fraction, you switch the place of the numerator and the denominator. So where Jim Crow puts the death factor 3/5 into everything black people do, the GAGUT Yale study correction factor, which is an antidote, if you will, to the poison of the 3/5, is its reciprocal, 5 over 3. The antidote destroys the poison of the 3/5. We're going to be dealing with that today in this broadcast. So you have to understand the 3/5 factor has permeated every aspect of our society because of Jim Crow's putting it in there. GAGUT is now sent here to destroy that 3/5 factor with the GAGUT Yale study correction factor 5/3. This is one of the things we're going to be dealing with today, so I'm hoping both you and Miss Q are ready to understand this point. Are you there?
Yes. Yes.
Miss Q, can you hear me? Miss Q. Yes, we can hear you. Have you been listening?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay, are you both ready now to begin? Because
Yes.
now we're going to be touching on the points that Mr. Divers brought up regarding why the black school is not studying this. Why haven't you heard noise about this in the black community? Jim Crow has understood the impact of GAGUT. Göttingen, which was the headquarters of intelligence, has surrendered to the black people and in effect surrendered to OFAPIC Institute of Technology because of GAGUT determining the black man as the greatest mathematician of all time that can never be surpassed. Dasgupta, representing Asia with a population of over 3-point-something billion people, have recognized the black people through Professor Oyibo as being Professor Oyibo being closer to God than any of us. He has now surrendered from the position of where black people are being viewed in that system as being so-called Dalit. Now they're closer to God than any of us, any other people. So you have to understand that is also a surrender to the black people. And the Yale study, which you see in front of you, is a surrender from Jim Crow over to the black people, that the black people are the most intelligent. It is now up to us to now see these surrenders, recognize these surrenders, and to take action. And that requires now for the people to understand the parallel between a formula and a budget for a formula. If you don't show your understanding of that formula, Jim Crow is not going to respect you. You have to understand this parallel. I know in the last 2,500 years, especially due to the terrorism from Jim Crow and the way they present certain things, mathematics is automatically something that they terrorize or they use to get black people away from the subject. They present mathematics in a very poor way to begin with, and the subject is pretty difficult if you're not up to the challenge or up to understanding it. But they use techniques to keep black people away from mathematics. And that is where the problem lies, an understanding of formulas. The Jewish people before GAGUT were blessed with a formula, E minus MC squared equals 0, which is known as relativity, Einstein's special relativity theory, through Professor Albert Einstein, a German Jew who was blessed with that formula. Before that formula was understood and financed and supported by his people, the Jewish people were considered less than second-class people in Europe and primarily in Germany. Once their people put donations and funds towards that formula, the whole problem of the Jewish people being viewed as so-called second-class people or people with no intelligence changed. Once they had a budget behind the formula, their people are no longer being considered so-called people to be ignored or people to be rejected, but now people to be respected. To such a point now where even now, the Jewish people have now experienced a sort of invulnerability or appearance of invulnerability due to relativity. But these are some things we're going to be touching on in this broadcast today. So you have to understand within GAGUT, the God order that says God has ordained Professor Oyibo with the ultimate intelligence of eta sub infinity. And because black people share the same genes as Professor Oyibo, that makes the black people the most intelligent, richest, and most undefeatable race. First of all, we have to demonstrate our understanding that we are the most intelligent. And we are the most intelligent through understanding the value of Gij, comma j equals 0. That's the first thing that has to be shown in order for us to demonstrate intelligence. The next step is now to realize that within GAGUT, for example, one of the things you may not know about GAGUT is GAGUT currently on Amazon is the most expensive book in the entire world. Did you know that, sir?
Yeah, because you told me when we talked last time.
Yes, but did you take a look for yourself to see the price of what the Amazon book was of Highlights of the Grand Unified Theorem?
Yeah.
What was their price, sir?
I think they had one on there for like 11, but it was a used one. I think it was 11.
But the price was $11,000. Was that not correct?
Yeah.
11,000 US dollars.
Right.
That's for one book, and as you said, a used copy. You have to understand, Jim Crow has understood the value of GAGUT. if you understand that's for a used copy of an old journal, a journal from GAGUT back almost 15 years ago, you have to understand the value of GAGUT today. That's where the briefing comes in, where when you put down your $550 to come into the briefing, you have demonstrated your understanding of the GIJ, J equals 0 formula. But you've done more than that. You've also demonstrated your understanding of you being the wealthiest people. Because when you put your $550 down, you are getting an investing value of that. Well, it's even more than the $11,000. But even if we took it at the $11,000 of the journal that you're going to be getting with this broadcast, $550 compared to the $11,000 is basically $550. If you take a 2,000% return, that's what you get with the $11,000. In other words, 550 times 20 gets 11,000. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So in effect, you're putting down 1/20th of the amount that you're getting back. Can you see that investment as making you the most richest or wealthiest person?
Yes.
Praise God for that. That is part of the thing that, and then once you've understood that you have been blessed with GAGUT, and that makes you the most intelligent people, and you demonstrate that intelligence through the formula, and you also understood through your registration to come to the briefing that you are the richest people. Now, when you've done that on PayPal, you're sending a message to Jim Crow directly, because Jim Crow monitors everything that's done on PayPal. When the black people are showing, like you've done, your understanding of the formula has made you the most intelligent, and you've understood that you are the wealthiest through your investing in the GAGUT formula, that now tells Jim Crow the clearest message to back the hell off the black people. Right. It tells them to stop the terrorism of the black people. The problem today is black people are not understanding the way to stop Jim Crow from the terrorism that they've engaged in. Just going out and just saying Black Lives Matter, or just talking about, oh, just begging the police or the Jim Crow to stop killing you, that's not going to make any impact. I know that sounds harsh, but that's unfortunately the reality. The only way you can stop Jim Crow from attacking you is forcing them to recognize you understand the formula of GIJ, J equals 0. And when you invest in that formula and provide a budget behind that formula, it finally shuts down Jim Crow. Like I went over it. Göttingen, which was the headquarters of white supremacy before GAGUT, they surrendered to black people through them surrendering to Professor Oyibo and declaring Professor Oyibo as being greatest mathematician of all time that can never be surpassed. Dasgupta, when he surrendered to Professor Oyibo by declaring Professor Oyibo as being closer to God than any of us, he represents the entire Indian community who, through the caste system, viewed black people at the bottom. By his surrender to Professor Oyibo and declaring Professor Oyibo as being closer to God than any of us, that is a surrender of their whole system to the black people. So that all came about through a formula. If we don't show an understanding of that formula, you're basically showing you don't understand your own being blessed by God as being intelligent, richest, and most undefeatable race. Can you see that?
The value, yes.
Exactly. So that's one of the things we want to make sure you all understand today, and that's where we're going to start this broadcast. So are you both ready?
Yes.
Miss Q, are you ready? Miss Q, can you hear us? I don't know what's with her phone. Miss Q. Well, she'll be coming back, I'm sure. Miss Q, can you hear us? Yes, I think that's her now. Miss Q, can you hear us?
Yeah, it's just on mute, John.
I understand. We're about to start. I'm going to, if everyone's ready and have questions answered, I'm going to connect over the professor now so we can begin the broadcast.
Okay.
Does everyone have any questions or understanding problems? Or?
No, I'm good.
Yes. And one of the things we're going to hope that after this broadcast, you're going to use the each one reach many to connect with your other brothers and sisters, to share this God order with them, and to get them to come on board and join in what you're doing. Because once you get them to join in to do what you're doing, you're sending the message to Jim Crow, you are the most intelligent race, richest race, and most undefeatable race. And that will guarantee an end the police brutality and the other murders that are engaged by Jim Crow on black people once and for all. Can you both understand that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Praise God for that. So Just a second. I'm going to connect the professor on. Please hold.
I have to go to bed.
Hello. Samuel? Samuel? I put the cup right beside the computer. Move it, okay.
Oh, no, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you cooking food? Oh. I might take. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Oh yeah, I gotta cut the power off.
Yeah. See the whiteboard, the extra board?
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Is everyone ready?
There I go.
Mr. Divers, are you there? Miss Q, are
Yes,
you?
sir. You hear me?
Sir.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, sir. Okay. Good afternoon, Miss
Good
Q
afternoon.
and Brother Divers. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Professor.
It's nice to see you both.
Good to see
Yeah,
you.
good to see you, Professor.
Yes, and how those young brothers and sisters doing, Sister Q?
They're doing good, growing by leaps and bounds.
And Brother Divers, I understand your missus is around. Please feel free to get her close by you if possible, okay?
Okay, I will. She's a little busy right now, though.
I understand, but as you know, we can't do much without the sisters, right?
I know.
We don't have no power without them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
You done eating?
how is the weather where you all are right now? The weather good?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Beautiful, wonderful.
Yes, sir. It's beautiful.
Yeah, good weather here.
Aha. So that's wonderful. All right. So
Yeah.
now what we're doing today comes under the topic of GAGUT life saving
and Riemann hypothesis, which is also called the God order. The life-saving is an order of God who created life to be holy and to last forever as a real God order. God created life to be holy because it comes from God, the holiest, and because God creates, when God creates something, God has no intention of what God designed to crumble. That's the logic. So when God designed anything, it's designed to last forever. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Very, very important. So that's why God is life and intelligence, while ignorance and death is what we call the devil. That's the definition of devil, is ignorance and death. The contrary of that is God and intelligence. So that is the basis of the God order. Since we've been created, it's been a journey like a child coming out of the womb. So the learning begins as soon as we come out of the womb. In fact, even before then. But it's learning all the way. And you're learning in order to understand the purpose of your being created. The very purpose. And you keep on, because it's like anything else. Somebody drops you, you find yourself at a particular space-time point, and why are you here? What's going on? Why are you here? Where did you come from? And who created you? Those are called the age-old questions to humanity. Now, all those questions can only be answered with your mind, with your intelligence. Therefore, intelligence becomes the piece of God in us, because God, who designed and produced us, has answers to those questions. So if God has answers to all the questions, including those, and we need intelligence to answer those questions, then intelligence must be God. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes. You need intelligence. Go ahead, sister.
I see it. I hear you.
Praise God. Yes.
Yeah.
Intelligence is what we need to understand and answer questions. So, but there is an entity who not only knows how to answer those questions, but pose those questions for you. But as that entity has the answers. So because that entity has no problem, because he has answers to every problem. He has solutions to every problem. Therefore, that's what characterizes God as intelligence. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So that is the basis of, but we just said that God and intelligence, they're one. But that constitute life. God and intelligence constitute life. But absence of God and intelligence constitute death. Therefore, death, God has absolutely nothing to do with death. God has absolutely nothing in common with death. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I see it.
Yes. Well, you know, all the things you hear about, well, you know, God called him back or called her back and all that, you can see that's totally out of place, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please, if there's any little ounce of lack of understanding that, please come up with it. This point is extremely critical. God has nothing in common with death. It's the exact opposite of death. This is the God order. This is what God ordered me to explain to all of you. So it's more than that. So therefore, God cannot call death, because death is not God's friend. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah.
So God cannot just go to an enemy and say, well, come and do some assignment for me. Do you understand?
Yeah.
They're not friends. They don't go together. They're not related. All right?
Right.
So, because that's absence of God. Death is absence of God. The devil, you know, and death are absence of God. Okay? Death only occurs where there's no God. Can you feel that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Absence of God is what we call death. So, therefore, to say God is responsible for death is totally wrong. Can we say this?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
This is Q.
Mm.
Did you hear what the professor said?
Yes.
But what did you say? What is your answer to that?
Praise
Yes.
God.
Praise
Praise
God.
God.
Praise God.
Right.
Praise God. Praise God. So when you begin your journey into Gagutical world or Gagutical age of intelligence, you have to come in with an open mind and then go with the flow of the transformation of the truth, which is where GAGUT derives its name, which is God Almighty's Grand Unified Theorem. Theorem means infallible truth. You understand?
Yes.
Yes. Now, God has attributes, every good attributes that is within us, because that's the peace of God that is in us. Okay? So, for example, God is a parent, like a mother. You understand?
Yes.
God is like a mother and a father. So, to say God called death on us, and God wishes us to die, is saying a mother is calling death on her child. Do you understand?
Yes.
Even if it's just for the 9 months alone, that baby stayed in the womb. Do you understand?
That's correct.
It certainly will not be consistent for a mother who has gone through that to say, gee, death come take my child. You understand?
Right. That wouldn't make any sense at all.
Thank you very much, brother. Sister, you agree? Sister Kia, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You heard what he said, right?
Okay, say it one more time.
Brother, go ahead.
He was explaining about a mother going through 9 months of childbirth. She would not wish death upon her child, and I was saying that's absolutely right. It's precious to her.
Exactly. Yes, sir. I agree with that.
Right.
Praise God. That's one key piece of the presentation today, the briefing today. See, God got tired of being slapped with all kinds of horrible things. You know, so that's why God ordered me here to help you through with understanding the purpose of your being here. You understand?
Yes.
God gave you a life, designed you with a life that is holy. Holy, because that's a piece of God. And then designed to last forever. All right? Have I proven that?
Yes.
Thank you. Like Brother Glover was saying, hey, we only give you infallibly proven material here. We don't, you know, and we don't take the position of, well, if you don't understand it, that's your business. We don't do that either. You understand?
Yes, Professor.
We want to make sure that you are totally convinced of the truth, infallible truth. So that's what. So therefore, we've cleared the dynamics that God is intelligence and life, and so everything that came out of God and that is close to God will have intelligence and have life in one form or another. So that connects intelligence with life, and in the process, you know, give us a sense of where did death come from? Do you understand?
Yes.
So we need intelligence to sustain life, obviously, or somehow intelligence and life work together. So if life was designed to last forever, you know, there must be a mechanism by which life is able to last forever. Okay?
Right.
Which is in a collaboration with the intelligence. You understand?
Yes.
So therefore, and additionally, we are supposed to be a symbolism of God, because God cannot die. If God dies, everything else crumbles. You understand?
Correct.
If God begins to get sick, we will all have problems. You understand? So God doesn't have the luxury of being sick. Kind of like a mother who has to wake up in the middle of the night because the baby is crying. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
The only time the mother gets some rest is when the baby is doing fine and the baby is getting some sleep, nice, good sleep. You understand? But if the baby has to have some headache or some kind of problem, the mother is up, especially if she begins to cry. You understand?
Yes.
So therefore, the mother is available to take care of the child any moment, every moment. That's why the sisters must be respected. You understand?
Yes.
They do miracles. You know, they do miracles in terms of being available to make sure the child's life is protected, every second of that child's life. Okay? And so you can call it love, you can call it intelligence, it's the same. You understand?
Yes.
So in African philosophy, there are three major dynamics that guides existence, which is Uma. The number one is Uma. Uma is, you probably, you remember your Asian history, you hear about the Ma civilization, Ma, M-A-A. Arabs put a T at the end of it, they call Ma'at. Ma. That is knowledge of infallible truth. That's what Ma means in African vocabulary. Ma. That's where, when Arab put the T at the end of it, because Ma'at, then they coin up the word mathematics from Ma'at, which is Ma'at, Ma'atikos. Ma'at, meaning Ma'at is the essence of existence. Ma. Yes. Because Ma means knowledge, Ma means intelligence, which is God in reality. That's what Ma is, M-A-A.
M-A-A.
That's correct. Ma. So, Ma, from there, mathematics. Mathematics is the knowledge of infallible truth, or as defined by GAGUT, is the knowledge of infallible truth, otherwise called theorem. So, Ma, therefore, called mother, Ma, because of this extraordinary blessing God gives to a mother to be available for the child every second of the child's life, especially in the early stages. So the second one, second existence virtue or ingredient is Ojima. Ojima. As you can see, the Ma is repeated again. Ojima. Ojima means due to respect. Oji means due to. Then Ma is intelligence, which is a phrase from the African sentence that says, the glory you give to God due to God blessing a creature with intelligence is what Ojima means. Otherwise, in English, called respect. Respect. You've heard that word before, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you were in my generation, you'd have heard Aretha Franklin making the song Respect, very famous, right?
Yes, sir.
And you have, the male counterpart like, Professor, music professor Otis Redding. Again, that's my generation. Otis Redding sang Respect as well. And the reason, even the Lingala music, they sing Respect also. And the reason Respect has become a popular thing with the Black people in the last 2,500 years was we lost our respect when Jim Crow came on our shores. We suffered the loss of respect, which is a glory you give to God for God blessing somebody with intelligence. So we lost it. But, every story, a lot of stories have a happy ending. You understand?
Yes, sir.
when we were created, we were called, one of the earliest civilizations was called the Ma civilization, MAA civilization, where our lives were governed by intelligence. So, but when folks came who did not understand that concept, they brought in a problem with that situation. And so eventually we lost respect because our focus was Ma, which is really another word for God, intelligence. So what happens is that because these other factors took a focus away from Ma, guns were used instead of intelligence. You understand? Y'all understand?
Yes, sir.
In order to guide life and existence, these others begin to use guns where guns don't belong, because guns have no brains. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Guns don't have intelligence. So that was a shock to our system, and therefore Ma was compromised. Ma, up until the moment where God brought me in 1990, Ma was totally ignored. In terms of the hands of Jim Crow, to the point where the only usage of Ma was focused on designing and constructing destruction systems. Do you understand?
Right.
The bombs and the guns and everything else. That's the only use for Ma in that circumstances, before GAGUT came in 1990. So God clearly, and when you ignore Ma, you've ignored God. Can you see that?
Yes.
And so the only thing that prevails is death. Right?
All right.
Absence of God is death. Right?
That's correct.
And it's been shooting to the point where another confrontation with the mother and parents in general, but mother is symbolic of the parents. Where today children are being strapped to the bombs and exploded in a good part of the world currently. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So God felt God had enough, and that's why God created me. God brought me in and said, well, you go and deliver my order. That's why I'm here. You understand?
Yes, sir.
So that's why I'm giving you the background here. Who am I? I'm an entity created by God to deliver the God order exactly. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And that God order exactly is, all of it is encapsulated, is right into this formula in front of you. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Q, you there?
Yes, sir. I hear you.
That's right. This is the totality of the God order is Latin, is embedded in that formula in front of you. That's what God sent me with. So in that way, every creature that had played dumb and said, well, we don't really know what is the God order, so we're going to use our own incentives to guess what's the God order and live by that. So, God gave it exactly like God ordered it. That's what is in that formula. But before I do that, I want to go to the third ingredient of existence. I'll give you the Ma, and I'll give you Ojima. Ma is intelligence. Ojima means respect or glory give to God, because God gave a creature intelligence. Then the third one is love, Fedor. Fedor is the last one. But they're all together. They all have a center. Intelligence as a center. Intelligence the center. So you have Uma, Ojima, respect. Ma is intelligence. Ojima is respect. And Ufedo is love. Those are the ingredients. Those are the ingredients of existence as God created it. Because all those three things come from God, meaning it comes from intelligence. And so it is that love, which is a product of intelligence, makes the world go round. You understand? Do you understand that? Can you understand that, folks?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Love makes the world go round. What's an example of that? Well, we have the seasons, right? If we were to stay in the hot summer all our lives, that's going to be miserable. You understand? So we move from hot to cold, and in between we have something mild. That's piece of love. But the world has to go around, the earth has to go around the sun to do that. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the world will go around because of love. So the love makes the world go around. So that's the three things that I want you to remember. Intelligence, which is God, respect, which is glory given to God, and love, which is, and love, the actual definition of love is you take yourself and your fellow creatures, and a major difference between us and God is, while God is perfect, we have some imperfections or limitations, if you will. So what love does is, love will concentrate on your good part, your good features. You understand?
Yes, sir.
And will glorify God for that, as in respected. But love says, okay, for a baby, for example, yeah, I prefer your smile. I'm going to be focusing on the baby's smile rather than worry about the dirty diaper. Do you understand?
Right. That's right.
Now that's the definition of love. The focus is on the smile, the good, beautiful smile. Okay, and other entertainments you get from the baby. That ignores, that totally, trivialize the dirty diaper. So that makes you so powerful. That good, that God peace that you can see and appreciate overshadows the dirty diaper. So the dirty diaper becomes a trivial issue. You don't even think of it. You understand?
Yes.
That's what the love does. It's the same basis that we could, nurses can take care of patients and so on and so forth. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now that's the essential thing. So therefore, these are pieces of the God order. Now, when you're able to follow this, you're on your way to eternal life, or realizing the God's order of God creating life to be holy and to last forever. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now then, that's the purpose of God creating us. That's the only reason. And in the process, we're glorifying the Almighty God. Because, you know, when we show we could live forever, hey, that's impressive. That's
Okay,
awesome.
Professor.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes.
Say that one more time for me. Say it one more time for me.
Yes. The only reason God created us is to glorify God. And we'll glorify God by living a life forever. You know, when somebody designs a car and boy, the car doesn't have any problems, or, you know, it's always there, runs and all that, the glory goes to first cut to the designer and the producer of that car. So when we're living a life where there are no sicknesses, when we're living a life when there's no hunger, when we're living a life as nice and smooth for a long time, we will marvel at it and say the Creator must be a glorious Creator. So God is glorified when we live a life without problems. Do you understand?
Yes.
Or with minimal problems. Do you understand? And that is what leads us to the next thing, which is the definition of heaven. That is the definition of heaven. A state of existence where you have no problems or very minimal problems. That is heaven. Because that's a symbolism of the Creator. Creator has absolutely no problem. You understand?
That's right.
So because, Sister Q, you get it? Hello?
I think she dropped out.
Oh, no. What? Okay. John, I think you need to take care of that. Just...
I don't see her.
Let me connect her.
Fine, how you doing, bud?
On the break?
Yeah. I think it's disconnected.
Are they gone to work?
No, wait, probably.
Okay. Well, that's what I want to do the break about.
Hold on, let me see.
You know what I mean?
Hello?
Ladies back.
Okay, you back?
Just a second.
Yes, I'm back.
Just a second. Just a second. Miss Q, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
What
The
happened?
call- I don't know. The call just dropped.
All right, well, that's Jim Crow, but we're glad we got you back. Just a second. Professor will be on in just a second.
All right, thank you.
I don't know.
was the last thing you heard?
Do you remember the last thing that you heard, Miss Q?
Will we turn the light on, take the light?
Did you get the answer to that question?
Did you hear the answer to your question, Miss Q? Miss Q? Miss Q? He's not back yet. Right, Miss Q, can you hear us?
Hello, this is Miss Q.
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, babe. Yeah, John, I don't. It's dropping now, but yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, did you?
Did I do what?
I mean, did you get the answer to your question?
Actually, the call dropped while Professor was talking.
All right. Do you remember the question you wanted him to answer?
Yes, he was saying he was sharing how God made life to last forever.
All right. He's going to continue. Just a second.
Wireless color.
Oh, he left the call.
What? Oh,
I left the call.
just a second.
Call from wireless color. Call from wireless color.
You still going to the bank? You still going to the bank?
Well, go ahead. You got to go. I get it in now.
Okay.
Yeah, you go ahead. You
All
don't
right.
have too long in it, man.
All right,
But I
lady.
really like it. I like it.
I like it too.
Ooh, I
Doris.
love it.
I
put
like
that stuff in it and put my
Uh-huh.
name on it. I like it.
All right.
You get it in now.
Okay, and we got to get together now so we can get us a group, Joyce.
Okay, all right.
All right, baby.
Okay.
Call me sometime. I'll just be home, child.
Hello.
Okay. Mr. Divers, you there?
Yeah, I was disconnected for a little while.
Mr. Divers, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Mr. Divers.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, good, sir.
Okay.
We're ready then to continue. Yes, we're going to continue, sir.
Okay.
Okay. So we're all there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Well, Sister Q is already used to the Jim Crow's dynamics already, right?
Yes, sir.
I think.
Yes.
So Brother Divers eventually is kind of encountering that in this particular place. So you just relax and go with the flow. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right.
Incidental, I heard you had asked questions if there are disconnections in the broadcast.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Divers was already anticipating that by asking a question much earlier on. He said, well, do we encounter this, interruptions? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
But It's all part of it. You understand? Y'all understand?
Yeah, I understand.
Yes. The whole idea of Ma is perfection. Ma, intelligence is needed for perfection. God is perfect because God does not just have intelligence, but God is the totality of intelligence. So there's no room for imperfection with God.
That's correct.
So so therefore, so now, if God, as has been proven, is perfect, and because God is the totality of intelligence, God then created us with the creatures. Okay?
Yes, sir.
God created us, and then the question is, why did God create us? Well, what happens is, God is the ultimate glory. God is ultimate intelligence. So God is characterized by glory. So when God creates an entity, the focus must be on that glory. Do you understand?
That's correct.
Yes. You want to be, the creature must be like God. Just like the parent, sometimes there's a little struggle there between the parents, because every parent wants the child to be like them. You understand?
That's right.
President Obama in Israel was cracking a joke with the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and he says, you know, Mr. Prime Minister, your children, he now knows where the children got their beauties and good looks from. He says it's from the mother. And so that's, you know, the issue is every parent would like the child to look like them.
Oh, wonderful.
I think I put it in the first.
Yeah, you understand?
Yes.
Every parent likes the child to look like them, act like them. You understand?
Yeah.
Look like them, act like them. I mean, every parent wants to reproduce themselves. You understand? They would like to reproduce themselves. In other words, that's the purpose of a parent. You understand?
Yes.
The one that replaces them, in other words, that continues their own existence, in effect. So it is that when you give birth to a child, okay, you are looking forward to something that continues your glory. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes. You're looking for something that continues your existence. But you know, in existence, you don't necessarily focus on your weaknesses or your limitations, your shortcomings. On the contrary, you concentrate on the good things. Do you understand?
That's right.
So therefore, you like to be glorified. That's the purpose of you. You know, your focus really when you have children. Okay, you have children, you want the children to be like you, to show the good things, the good side of you. That's really what you give to a child. The same way, God created us to be, to live, to be holy means perfect or good, really good. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because that's the attributes of God. God is good and God wants you to look good, because then you are a reflection of your creator. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You are a reflection of your creator. And in this case, since we as creatures have limitations, then God is interested in the part of us that is consistent with God, that is, it demonstrates the God, which is the glory, the good part.
The good aspects, that's right.
The God's aspects, yes, God's aspect. The good aspect to say, but yes, the God's aspect. You understand? You understand?
Yes.
Which is perfection. So perfection is a glorification. Do you understand?
That's right.
Okay.
So therefore, God created us to be holy, means approaching perfection. And part of that approach of that perfection is to last forever. Do you understand?
Yes.
So
Okay.
therefore, death, which is the exact opposite of life, is the part that is unrelated to God. Do you understand?
Right.
Yes. That comes as a result of our own shortcomings, our limitations. Do you understand?
Right.
Yes.
That's the message today. That's part of the order. And that has to be understood before you know the place for life saving in your life. You understand?
That's right.
In other words, because we've been ordered by God to be holy, means no dirt, nothing, no limitations, just great, approaching perfection. And part of approaching the perfection is to be able to last forever. So therefore, that's a glorification of the Almighty God. And therefore, that is the only reason we were created. Unfortunately, we're going to fall short of the perfection. That's where our own limitations come in. Do you understand?
That's right.
But, but it's not all bad. It's not all desperate. Because with intelligence, we can overcome the limitations. Do you understand?
Right. Each thing we learn.
Yes.
Right.
It takes us to higher grounds. Do you understand?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Sister Q, did you get a sense, the basics now of what I just said?
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
Praise God. Please ask questions. This point is very important because you've had, up until GAGUT, most of the things that we learned come out of theories. Theories are things that begin with guesswork.
Okay.
Yes, guesswork. So, and some of it we can verify through experience. Those, especially the parts that are correct, and parts that are wrong as well. Okay? If you start with a theory that says drinking arsenic, you understand, it's right. That's a theory. Okay? And that is good for you. That's a presumption, an assumption you begin with. It's a guesswork. But unfortunately, you may not be able to live to actually verify the result of the of that guesswork. You understand?
Yeah, I understand that.
Sometimes it could be that devastating, So, but what is important is for us to know our limitations are expressed in our need to actually go with a guess. So guess is otherwise called a conjecture, a hypothesis. It's also called a theory. You understand?
Yes.
So that's the various names. So most of the things we learn are based on theories. 1990 was when God ended theories.
Great.
Yes. and bless us with theorems, you know, infallible truths. You understand?
Yeah.
All right. So when you learn from theories, you have any number versions of the what people, you know, hope is the truth. Okay, which is, among other things, is the purpose of our being here. You know, who are we? Where were we before? Who is God? What is God? Okay, and in the process, there are any number of confusions. A lot of learning, a lot of confusions as well. God, yes, because anywhere you have guess, there are all kinds of possibilities until that guess is confirmed. Do you understand?
Right. Mistakes.
That's right. So what God has, and we have suffered as a result. That is the guess work and our inability to come up with an infallible truth that's responsible for death. It's also responsible for sicknesses. It's very much responsible for wars. Wars. We go into war because of lack of understanding, because of our imperfections.
Right.
For there to be an order, there must be a pecking order. A pecking order. A pecking order. And the pecking order has God in charge. God gives the orders. The rest of us creatures take the orders. Do you understand?
That's right.
And the totality of the God order is encapsulated in the formula that you have there in front of you. So what happens then is infallible truth becomes the focus of our existence. Infallible truth. Infallible truth. You know, the truth is it. That is infallible truth, which is the language of God, otherwise called the God order. So what God did in 1990 was called me to deliver the God order. And God has to sow it in my brains. That God order is what we call God Almighty's Grand Unified Theorem, GAGUT, in which God revealed to me that all infallible truths, all of them, none that is left out, all infallible truths, which is all the pieces of God order, all of them, and all equations that represent all those, all infallible truths, past, present, and future, originate out of just one invariant, GI. One invariant GI, G sub I. All infallible truths and all equations that represent them. In reality is the truth or order. Past, present, and future originate out of just one invariant, GI. We are all infallible truths. You, Sister, Brother Divers, and Sister Q, and John, okay, and every other creature are all infallible truths. Your realities, because you can touch and feel, you can swear we exist. You understand?
Yes, sir.
That's infallible truth. That's the order and God's language. All of them originate out of one invariant, GI, which infallibly defines God. This point is extremely critical. All infallible truths, meaning all realities. That means every picture. You understand? Everything that is created is a reality. John, I think we lost Sister Q again.
Yes, she just dropped out.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes.
I am not a mathematician.
Yes.
So, could you explain a little on the invariant?
Yes. Don't worry. We're gonna be there.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. That's a good question, but you know, I was just hoping, although Sister Q has heard some of this before. Yes, that's a very good question, and has a good reasoning behind it, because you're going to rise to much higher heights in spite of whatever obstacles has been in your way. That's how you know it is a God order. So therefore, nothing is going to obstruct that trajectory of yours. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So, and what I was saying before is that Ma is the knowledge of infallible truth. That's what Ma is from the original African vocabulary.
Ma, intelligence.
M-A-A. Okay, Ma is the knowledge of the infallible truth, which in effect is intelligence. Do you understand?
Intelligence. Right.
Yes. So what you're going to see here is how the truth becomes the focus. The truth or the geometry of the truth becomes the focus. And so what was referred to as various disciplines before GAGUT becomes secondary. So that is a way to begin dealing with what you said in terms of saying you are not a mathematician. No, you are a mathematician. Okay, John, I think she seems to be back. Miss Q, can you hear us? Miss Q. Hello? Hello? Miss Q, are you there?
She looks like she's back.
Yeah, but we're still not getting a communication from her yet. In other words, Ma, when God defined Ma for our ancestors as Black people, He didn't say, oh, that Ma has to be in a particular discipline. You understand?
Okay.
It just says the knowledge of infallible truth. That truth could be about anything. You understand?
So I understand what you're saying. So it doesn't have to, it's not like a particular type of math, or it's not like a particular.
Yes, that's another way of saying, I disagree with you categorically that you're not a mathematician. I just proved to you that you are a mathematician, in other words.
Okay, that's okay.
Yes, that's how God ordered me to get you through all the fake obstacles on your path. You understand?
Yes, sir.
That's a semantic dynamics. When God started with us, God said knowledge of infallible truth. So you understand the knowledge of infallible truth is it. Now later on, people begin to say, okay, what if you are dealing with medicine? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But when you are in medicine, the primary thing studying medicine is the truth, or supposed to be the truth.
Right.
The truth about medicine, or the truth about medical systems is what you're doing. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But more than anything else, you are studying the truth. You understand?
That's correct.
This point is so very critical. I'm so glad you asked the question. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Because it's the key to your understanding this, the formula that's ahead of you. All right?
Yes, sir.
So, but when the lack of understanding comes into the process, Sister Q, are you there? I wish she's here. I see the image and all, but I mean, I don't see her. I don't, certainly, unless she put her things on the mute.
Miss Q.
Sister Q, you there? I like her to be here because this point is very critical. John, can you maybe give her a call? Yeah. Okay. So now, what God has done in some scientific, and mathematical vocabularies, there's something called normalization. When you normalize things, you bring them to a common denominator. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
If you have two, more than one fraction, you could bring them to a common denominator. You understand?
Yeah.
And then unify them. So the bottom line is what we're dealing with here in this formula is a unification of all the truths, or the knowledge of infallible truths, irrespective of their disciplines. You understand?
Okay, I understand.
Otherwise called the geometry of the truth. Okay? Because the truth is geometry. The truth is geometry. The Jah is the African vocabulary for God. Jah.
Jah.
Yeah.
Jah.
Yeah. When you hear about the brothers, the Rasta brothers, they speak in African language. When they say Jah, Jah is the original vocabulary for God. You understand?
J-A.
That's correct. J-A-J-O, or J-A-H, or any number of ways you can spell it. But Jah is God. Okay? The non-blacks, particularly the Europeans in English, they don't know how to spell the Jah. They call it Jod, because the J and the G are both are the same letter. You understand?
Okay.
You understand
right.
that?
The same sound.
Is this, yeah, the same sound. G, you could G, Ja, it's G, J, the same thing,
Right.
So, so therefore, because J and G are the same letter, when you say Ja, other people could say Ga. All right, Ga, Ja. So then, whatever. Sister Q, are you there? I see a picture now. Okay. So therefore, geometry means the dynamics of God. Geometry. So the geometry of the truth is basically concentrating. You see, because the truth about geometry, eventually through that, it's and even previous efforts, you're talking about a space-time. Geometry is a study of the space-time, or that's really the dynamic. So every truth is associated with space-time or geometry. That is where everything came from, and that's why it is God. You understand?
Yeah.
So when we say, people say geometry, they're talking about the understanding or the studying of God. But God is intelligence. God is the truth. Intelligence is the act of understanding. That's what intelligence is. So The ability to understand is what is called intelligence.
Right.
That's what God is. God is intelligent. God doesn't just have intelligence, but God is understanding. God is intelligent. God is everything. God is conscious. In other words, when we look at our own being, our own geometry, meaning our entity is contained, the core is contained within our body, the boundaries of our body. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Our skins and cover up the flesh, and within the flesh are all subsystems. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But then you have the bones to give it structure and everything else. Now, so that is geometry. That's what is called, geometry, and I mean space-time. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so by and large, we can feel a lot of things that go on in our body, meaning we can be conscious of them. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That is knowledge. That consciousness is part of intelligence. You understand?
Yes, sir.
That you could feel your fingers, you could feel your toes. That's awareness and consciousness of those components of your body. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So what happens to not only those components, but each point of those components over space and time is what constitutes your awareness and your consciousness of your body. Do you understand?
Yes.
Your understanding of your body. So therefore, that understanding is what is called intelligence. So we feel the things within our body more clearly, more accurately, that we can feel and understand things that are outside our bodies. Do you understand?
Yes.
Should I go at that again, or you understand that? Do you understand that?
Yes. Yes, I understand.
Our proximity, our being together with our body, where our senses can feel the parts of our body, gives us the awareness and the consciousness of what's going on in our bodies. Do you understand?
Right.
That awareness and go ahead.
So that's all even part of knowledge.
And knowledge is intelligence. That's part of intelligence. You understand?
Yes.
Okay. So now we have extensions to that immediate consciousness that we have of our systems. Like our eyes can get us to see things and recognize them. Do you understand?
Yes.
So that extends our intelligence beyond the things that are within our bodies. Do you understand?
Yes.
Our ability to hear, that's our ears, also extend our intelligence and consciousness. Do you understand?
Yes.
Our smell can do similar things for us. Do you understand?
Right. Yes. Yes.
And if that's not enough, our imagination abilities in our brains further extends our ability to understand or extend our intelligence. Do you understand?
Right. To understand the environment that we're in.
Exactly. So it's all space-time dynamics. Now, so consciousness and awareness and recognition and knowledge of are things that constitute intelligence. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so our consciousness and knowledge of and all that are sharper, more real, more concrete when they are within our bodies or when they're within our sphere of influence, our sphere of feel and, you know, whatever other senses we have. Do you understand?
Yeah.
When they are beyond that limit, is not as concrete anymore. The integrity is not as concrete as when they are within us. Do you understand?
Right.
To the point where you have to use imagination. Imagination is less concrete. You understand?
Right.
Yes, it's not as concrete as the one that you can touch.
That's more like a guesswork almost.
That's where the theory comes in. Do you understand?
Right.
All right, now, so our main understanding sphere is within our own locality, our own bodies. Do you understand? As creatures, as our own location, as our own local dynamics. The others are less accurate. Okay, when we go beyond that sphere, we're less accurate. You understand?
Yes.
But God's location is the entire universe. Do you understand?
Right. Everything.
Thank you very much. Are you coming along?
Yes.
Praise God. So
Praise
God is located in every space-time. And within every point of that space-time, God is conscious. God is actively conscious at every point, in all the parts of the entire universe. Do you understand?
Yes.
Therefore, God knows what's happening at every point, every space-time point, every, exactly.
Wow.
Everywhere. Yes. So therefore, God has not only the infinite intelligence, as large as the entire universe, but God is actually that intelligence. Do you understand?
Right.
Yeah, it's not imagination like mine or yours and other creatures. Do you understand?
Right. He's the whole complete being.
Exactly. It's what we call a real space-time. A real space-time. It's right in that point and the same time. Do you understand?
Right.
God intelligence is in real space-time, in other words. So now, therefore, the focus is on the geometry of intelligence, or the geometry of understanding. So Ma is that geometry, which is intelligence. All right?
Right.
So now, it's like when you count numbers of things. 1, 2, 3. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you understand? 1, 2, 3 is geometry. When you put in what you're counting, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like you could be counting human beings. So you say 3 human beings. Or you could be counting chickens, 3 chickens. Or 3 pieces of stones. Do you understand?
Yes.
Then you specialize in the counting. Now you can say, okay, you're dealing with this specific elements. Do you understand?
Right. And
what God has done is that is the dynamics, so you can use the dynamics of understanding a human being or a chicken or a piece of stone. Okay, so now God has made that secondary because there's one common denominator in all those. You understand?
Right.
That common denominator is the geometry. Okay, which is the truth. The truth is the common denominator. So if you understood the truth, applying it, if you know how to count, applying it to humans and chickens and stones is trivial. Do you understand?
Right, it's all the same.
The humans or the stones or the chickens that are important in terms of understanding the truth about them. It is the actual geometry that constitute them, or the geometry of the intelligence. You understand, that is most important. So if you've studied the geometry of intelligence, then you have understood the basis of everything. Just like if you understood how to count, applying it to a human is nothing. You understand?
Right.
So therefore, the counting, your ability to count, is the essence, is what really is important, not counting humans. You understand?
Not what you're counting.
Not what you're counting. It's not. That's not the full. That's not what is important.
Right.
Okay. So that is the essence. So therefore, God revealed to me, therefore, that all of those infallible truths and all equations that represent them, that represent all of them, past, present, and the future, originate out of just one invariant, that is this G I sub I. The I eventually will be called a material dimension. And in the process, they originate out of one invariant. What does that mean? They originate out of is like being created by. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Originate out of is like a child appear to be originating out of the womb. Do you understand?
Right.
Therefore, originate out in this case becomes being created by that one invariant. Can you see that?
Right. Created by. Right.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
This is extremely important. Okay? Every reality originates out of just one invariant, Gi. One invariant, Gi. So if every reality comes out of that's like, the 10 children, every one of the 10 children in the family came out of one mother's womb. Do you understand?
Right.
As in the mother is there, give birth to all of them. Do you understand?
Right.
That's what Gi is.
So
Go ahead.
Gi is the creator.
Exactly. So this probably is going to be not probably, it has to be your first experience in understanding an infallible definition of God. Can you see that?
Yes.
Something that no human being had any experience with ever before GAGUT.
Wow.
This is a theorem that all things that are created, that's the totality of reality, originate out of just one invariant, Gi, which infallibly therefore defines God. Can you see that?
Yes.
Eventually, you're going to be able to swear by what we just went over. But I'm not done yet. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
John? Yeah. Get hold of Sister Felix. Not yet.
Please hold, everyone.
Okay. Okay. So are you there?
Yes, sir.
So can you follow so far what we just went over?
Yes.
Every creature which is called infallible theorem or infallible truth. That's what a creature can be defined as. Infallible truth, something that is real and exists. Do you understand?
Yeah.
You could either touch, smell, or feel, or hear, or whatever is real. All right?
Right.
So all of those originate out of, and all the equations represent their geometry. Equations are things that represents reality or anything that exists. Do you understand?
Yes.
Everything that exists has an equation. You understand?
Yes.
Okay. The originate, past, present, and the future originate out of just one invariant, Gi, which from every human experience constitutes the infallible definition of God. Can you see that?
Right. GI.
Okay.
Okay.
So now this is going to open your whole mind in terms of things that you've heard before and how this connects with that. Do you understand?
Yes.
I just defined for you God geometrically. One invariant Gi with orthogonal components. That's the next part of it. There's no question now that Gi defines God in your mind, right?
Right. GI, that's the creator.
Yes. You never thought that was going to be possible, right?
No.
Absolutely. Well, we just did it together. You understand?
Right.
So all creatures originate out of just one invariant, Gi. That is everybody's idea of the definition of God. Therefore, this is infallible definition of God. But that God, therefore, has what is called orthogonal components,
Okay.
which is J. J is the component. J. The orthogonal components. That's all you need to describe those equations and the geometry of every reality. You need the orthogonal components, orthogonal, dimensions, J. So if I becomes the material, then J becomes what is called the space-time, orthogonal space-time dimensions.
Okay, so I would be God's material.
Yes.
And
J
is space time.
Yes, which is the geometry. Okay.
Right.
Then comma is what is called a tensor notation that symbolizes or signifies a change. Okay.
So
the comma is denotes a change. Yes, because we just said in the theorem that the I with orthogonal components GIJ is an invariant. Okay?
Okay.
So before I go into the, what happens after the, into the comma, now I have to define what invariant means to you, which is your question earlier. Right?
Exactly.
Invariant is something that doesn't vary. That's why it's called invariant, something that does not vary. It's a constant.
Invariant do not change.
Yeah, something that does not change is called an invariant. It doesn't change. No variation. You understand?
Right.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now, because it is an invariant with orthogonal components Gij, the comma does not change. If it is an invariant, the change over that space-time, that's the J components, the first components, must be zero. Must be zero because it's an invariant. There is no change in it. So the change is actually zero. Can you see that?
Yes. Okay, I understand.
That's right. That's what God has done.
God and God's material.
Yes, God in God's material and space-time dimensions does not change.
Is equal to zero.
Yes, the change is
Zero
equal to
change.
zero.
Zero change.
Yes, it's equal to zero. That, in other words, because it's an invariant, does not change, the change must be zero. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes.
This is exact revelation to me by God.
Wow.
In other words, for you to say something is real, it must satisfy this equation. That's what it means. You understand?
If it does not fall within this equation,
It doesn't exist.
Incorrect. It doesn't exist. It's not true.
It's not true. It's no real. It's not reality. It doesn't come from God. It's not a God order. Only God order is real and exists. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. That's what God revealed to me. But, if it's an invariant, if Gij is an invariant, it becomes the origin. In other words, if you can imagine that before these creatures existed, especially the material part, the material starts when you start allocating the I to it. That's when the material comes.
Right.
Before the material existed, the original point will be, it must be invariant, which is zero. It's like, starting your journey from your house. You have a starting point, which is your house. Do you understand? So the distance as you're starting from your house is zero. Do you understand?
Right, your starting point is zero.
Yes, because that's the original point. That's where you're starting. You're starting the count from then on. Do you understand?
Right.
Okay. So therefore, that point there is zero distance because you haven't started yet. The counter doesn't start working yet. You understand?
Exactly. Right.
So that is the invariant. That's what is God. That's what God was before God creating us. You understand?
Wow.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
Wow.
When before God created us, God had no change in it. God was invariant. You understand?
Right.
God was a constant, no changes. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. When God began, so therefore you're starting from a reference point then, that is God without creation. The reference, that's a reference, but that's original point. You understand?
Right, God alone.
Yes, God alone. That is where everything began. That is the origin. Can you see that?
That's the origin of space, time, and material.
The material. In other words, what was left then was God. So when God decided to create the material universe, then they have to come out of God. So material one was selected. You understand?
Right.
Material was selected, and God, boom, it was done. But that material will also have a space-time, orthogonal space-time dimensions. Do you understand? Though the speeches on that particular material just bam like that. God said that, said, and there was. Do you understand?
Right. The
So
word.
That's right. There you go. God said, and there was. All right.
Right.
So therefore, then the next material come in, and so on and so forth. They go through the same process, and they exist. But where it all started, there was no change. It was an invariant. Can you see that point?
An invariant, right. No, that's equal to no change.
That's right. So because that's where we all come from. It's an invariant. Something that did not have a change before we came out. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes.
Did you ever think someday you are going to be listening to a lecture like this?
No, sir.
That's right. That's a God order. But what he did to give you your own credit immediately is to say, wow, you've already gotten started in spite of a setback for 2,500 years, because you decided you were going to delve into this mystery here called GAGUT. You made a choice. Do you understand?
Yes.
You went into your mind and you tasked yourself and you brainstormed and said, gee, why should these things remain a mystery to me? I'm going to deal with it. Do you understand?
Yes.
That is shaking off the shackles. The shackles have been broken by God through GAGUT. So what you did was to shake them off yourself, and you got up and you called Brother Glover and said, get me in. I want to come in and see this fraud-looking thing here. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
You understand? That's what you did. You may not have seen it like that, but that's what you did. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes. You want to get into the bottom of this thing here that you see. That's what you did. You understand?
Right. To understand.
That's what is called intelligence. You took up the challenge using your intelligence. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
So you put Jim Crow on notice that pretended to be categorizing you as one with 3/5 of intelligence. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what you did when you registered. Now you're face to face with reality, right?
That's right.
When you registered, you said, gee, man, I want to be face to face with Oyibo. You understand?
Yes,
and take him on. But that's what you're doing right now. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yep. You are engaging Oyibo. So now you're going to make your own decision of what Oyibo is, or who is Oyibo. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. All
right. So the change in the invariant that we began with, the GIJ, is 0. You understand? Is there a way you could disagree with that? The thing was invariant, there's no change for it. So
right, there's no change.
The statement here says it's infallible, isn't it?
Yes.
Something that is invariant doesn't change by definition. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's invariant because there was nothing that showed any change because there was no materialization then. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it's one entity, no changes. All right?
That's right.
That's what God is, a GI, that one invariant GI with orthogonal components. GI is invariant, therefore the change in that invariant is 0. All right?
Yes, sir.
So then what happens to the material? Then where did the material come from? If material comes, after there was an invariant thing before, where did the material come from?
The material had to come out of the invariant.
Thank you. As in God created the material universe, right?
Right.
So what happens if there was no God? Would there be any materialization?
No.
Okay, so therefore, the materialization is an infallible proof of existence of God, GIJ. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Wow. Wow. What do you say to that, brother?
Praise God. That's correct.
Praise God. You're going to be taking on the atheists. It doesn't matter where they come from.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
In other words, you and them, I prove of infallible existence of GIJ. Can you see that?
Right, the both of us.
All right?
That's right.
Wow. And you can swear by it because there's no way we could be here if there was no creator. Can you see that?
Yes, of course.
So our very existence that we can touch, we can swear by our own existence, compels us to be in a position where we could swear by the existence of the one that existed before us, right?
That's correct.
Absolutely, infallibly. Just like there has to be a mother before the child.
Exactly.
There you go. Now, so therefore, this is equal to 0 becomes what defines anything that exists. Can you see that?
Say that again, Professor.
Therefore, the Gij equal to 0 is what identifies everything that exists. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So it is what you call a necessary condition. In mathematics, call that a necessary condition. Okay, for existence. Is that existence must satisfy this equation, otherwise it doesn't exist. Do you understand?
Yes.
A lie does not exist, so it doesn't satisfy this equation. Do you understand?
Yes.
The fraud of 3/5 for black people doesn't exist, so it does not come in here. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Or Jim Crow saying black people are slaves does not fit into this equation. Therefore, that is fraud. It does not exist. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And that it is impossible to call a black person a slave because it doesn't fit into this equation. Can you see that?
Right. It's a lie.
It's a lie. It's not real. It's not real. It's a fraud. This is a proof. Everything that's a fraud, it's what proves what is real and what's not real. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Well, this is your first experience in hearing anything like this in your whole lifetime. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
You were given the so-called holy books and you were asked to swallow it on something called faith. Have I asked you for your faith in what I'm talking to you about right now?
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, you're looking at me and I'm looking at you and I said, let's deal with it. I don't say, please give me faith. Have you heard me say that today?
No, sir.
That's right. I've not called you to use any faith. I asked you to use your God blessing of intelligence. I've gone through and we've all arrived at this conclusion. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Now this thing becomes your own baby too now. Can you see that?
Yes.
Hey, that's one thing Oyibo was ordered to do. You and him go through the geometry of the true infallible truth. And in the end, you inherit that infallible truth because now you can prove it yourself. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Therefore, it becomes your baby, just like it's my baby and the baby of everybody else that understands. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
So therefore, the only real symbolism for God is G-I-J. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Did I say it has anything to do with the blue eyes, blonde?
No, no.
That has not shown up here at all. You understand?
Right.
There you go. It's a new age. It's called the age of intelligence, or the GAGUTical age, or age of God. You understand?
Yes. The age of truth.
Your symbolism of God from now on is going to be G-I-J, because you know that to be an infallible truth. Can you see that?
Yes.
There you go. So religion and dogmatics have now been unified. Religion and theories are things you're hanging on to, waiting for GAGUT. Can you see that?
Right. They're like a starting point of trying to understand until you can truly understand.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yes. Your journey, beginning your journey to a destination of understanding is what a guesswork or a theory is. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So faith is now out of the window. Can you see that?
Yeah.
We just went through an infallible definition of God, and nowhere in the was faith required. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Because it is infallible truth. So therefore, faith is something you're hanging on to, waiting for GAGUT. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Praise God.
Praise God.
So this is how God ordered me to relate to every creature, the God order of what is God. What is this one invariant? GI, with orthogonal components GI. That's what God is. Because that's where every creature comes out of. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so from now till eternity, you have no illusions about definition of God ever again, right?
Exactly.
Yes, because it is infallible. It is absolutely infallible, right?
That's right.
Yes, nobody can, no reverend, no Muslim minister, not even a Hindu is going to come to you and say, well, you know, hey, this is God here, trust me. Do you understand? You tell them you don't need trust anymore. You know the infallible truth. So that's whenever anybody comes to you like that, they're coming to beg you to teach them. So now you turn on your teaching, put on your teaching gown and you start teaching the person. Do you understand?
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Because their lives depend on it. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So you can see how now, who gave me all this is my next question to you. Where did I get this from?
It came from God.
Exactly. The one God that you now know to be an infallible reality. So therefore you yourself concluded what I'm relating to you comes from God. That's what you just did, right?
That's right.
I didn't beg you to reach that conclusion, did I?
No, sir.
Did I give you a little tip to say, brother, hey, say this for me? Did I do that?
No.
I'll give you a bowl of a great soul food and say, brother, come on now, do this for me. You know, this on the house. Did you see me do that?
No, sir.
There you go. So, all right. So therefore, that's where we're beginning. So that's what it means to say God ordains. In other words, I have shown to you exactly the definition of God, and that we come out of that infallible God. That's what I just proved to you, infallible, which you understand without any use of faith. Now that's what is God. That's what is why it's called God. Now, so therefore, we're going to move on to the ingredients with which you can recreate every one of these eyes or GIs, the peace of God, in terms of each materialization. How do you actually understand them? That's the next thing we're going to see. John, I'm going to need you to put on the eta sub n. Okay? Now, I've given you an infallible fact about every creature. Okay? That fact is part of intelligence. Because what God showed in my brain gave me ability to see all the truths. All right? And what is the constraint of what constitutes the truth? That's what we just went over. That is, since in as much as I can cover the constraint for everything that's created, that is an infinite level of knowledge, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
So we begin to go into refining not only of God, but of Oyibo, who now you infallibly understand was sent by God. Do you understand?
Yes.
Because of what comes out of Oyibo. Isn't that right?
That's right.
It wasn't the dynamics of bribery or anything like that. It's what you saw, hear, and feel with your own system that led you into the conclusion. And that you can reproduce it yourself. Now you were not a mathematician. I'm gradually trying to convince you you are a mathematician after all. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
You now can explain this formula in as much as Gij is an invariant, right?
Right.
Comma is the change in that invariant. It could be zero because it doesn't change, right?
Right.
So you are now able to prove that explain the formula. So you know it is an infallible formula, right?
Correct.
Yes. There's no way you express something that doesn't vary to change, right?
Yes.
And that's what it says. It says it doesn't change because the change is zero. Do you understand?
Yes.
So therefore, everything that you've heard and that's right in front of you is infallible, meaning it comes from God. You understand?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Praise God. Okay, we're gonna. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can you see the formula up on your screen? Mr. Divers. Mr. Divers, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. That's good. Do you see the formula up on your screen?
There's no formula up there.
Okay, 1 second. How about now?
No. Huh? No, not quite.
I'm going to have to send you another invite, Mr. Divers. There's a problem with our connection. I'm going to have to disconnect and send you another invite.
Okay.
Right. Sorry, just a second.